The actress, Dora, is shown tossing her hair to the side and pulling her shirt down to reveal her neck and shoulders, a classic move to attract attention. She then proceeds to engage in a toast with a man, demonstrating an assertive personality. However, before reaching stardom, Dora experienced a difficult childhood. Her mother, burdened by debt, forced the young Dora to sing at a bar for money. After being paid, her mother criticized Dora's performance, blaming her for the low earnings. Following this scolding, the mother ordered her daughter to stay home and care for her siblings while she escaped her creditors. Adding to the family struggles, they rented a house from an elderly man who was rumored to be wealthy. Dora's mother, sensing an opportunity, crafted a plan. She knitted a scarf for the landlord, expressing gratitude for his generosity. She even placed the scarf around his neck. The man, touched by this gesture, invited Dora's mother for a drink. After several drinks, Dora's mother began lamenting her difficult life as a single mother, eventually embracing the man in a hug. This display of vulnerability moved the man, who offered her money to buy food for her children. Dora's mother continued her pursuit, inviting the elderly man to a movie and holding his hand. While walking home, she struggled with her high heels and leaned on him for support. When a creditor appeared, the man intervened and paid off Dora's mother's debt. After this incident, they began dating regularly. Dora's mother would hold the man's arm and would often stop to admire jewelry displays. The man, noticing her desire, would buy her the jewelry. He developed feelings for her. His daughter, aware of the relationship, initially tried to dissuade her father. However, after witnessing his genuine affection for Dora's mother, she eventually accepted their relationship. She even spoke to Dora's mother about it. Dora's mother feigned surprise and quickly explained that her kindness towards the man was purely out of gratitude. She then asked the man's daughter, "Would you want to be involved with an old man like him?" The man overheard their conversation. Dora's mother attempted to explain herself, promising to gradually repay the money the man had given her to pay off her debt. This angered the man, who fainted and died. Realizing the gravity of her actions, Dora's mother fled with her 3 children during the night. Dora felt deep regret as she harbored feelings for Dae-chung, the man's grandson, and longed to be with him. However, she was unable to defy her mother and was forced to leave him behind. To make a living, Dora returned to singing at the bar. Her natural talent for acting led her to attend several auditions, eventually landing a role in a film. She embarked on a career in the arts. She wanted to share this good news with Dae-chung, but his mother, the man's daughter, turned her away, declaring that she never wanted to see Dora's family again. Dora walked away heartbroken, passing by Dae-chung without a word. Years later, Dora rose to fame as a celebrated actress, while Dae-chung, now known as Pil-sung, became a TV producer. Their paths crossed again in the professional world. Dora, however, did not recognize him after all this time. She had come to reject a role in his upcoming film. She left without another word. Pil-sung was taken aback, struggling to understand why the girl who had once followed him around didn't recognize him. Then he realized, of course, his name change made it understandable. Director Hung, hoping to convince Dora to accept the role, instructed Pil-sung to buy flowers and bring them to her. Dora firmly stated that the pay was too low and that she lacked chemistry with the male lead. The executives, desperate to secure her presence in the film, racked their brains for a solution. Pil-sung was ready, having already contacted Bye Bye, who happily agreed to star in the film. He advised the executives to let Dora go, stating that they shouldn't force her. He then proceeded to badmouth Dora, calling her greedy, cheap, skinny, and unattractive. "Do you know her nickname?" "Crazy Dora," he remarked. He continued his scathing criticisms, urging the executives to abandon the idea of working with her. Just then, the CEO arrived, announcing the good news that Dora had accepted the role after his personal invitation. As he finished his announcement, Dora, who had been seated behind a screen, stepped into view. Pil-sung froze in place, recognizing her familiar voice. Dora smiled, acknowledging Pil-sung's prior assessment of her, and then, in another twist, decided to decline the role. Pil-sung, having caused this predicament, was ordered by the CEO to convince Dora to return. He then received news from his superiors. The main investor in the film had made it clear that if Dora wasn't the lead, they would pull out. Pil-sung understood the gravity of the situation. If the main investor withdrew, the smaller investors would follow suit. To ensure the film's smooth production, Pil-sung set out to find Dora. Pil-sung learned that Dora was at the airport, about to leave the country. He rushed to the airport, found her, and bowed deeply, begging her to forgive his past transgressions. He apologized for his cruel words. Just as he finished speaking, Dora received a call from her mother. Her mother had agreed to take her place in the film. Since joining the entertainment industry, this was the first time her mother had received a blank check with unlimited pay. Who could refuse such an offer? Dora changed her travel plans and decided to stay. Pil-sung walked Dora to her car. She waved him off, commanding him to never appear before her again. Pil-sung was left with a strange mix of emotions. The little girl who had followed him around was now a major star. Their positions had changed drastically. Dora returned home and asked her mother for details. Her mother wasn't entirely sure either, but she mentioned a new investor who insisted on Dora for the lead role and offered unlimited pay. Dora was curious about this mysterious investor. The investor was Jin Dan, a wealthy young man. He had bumped into Dora while walking in the opposite direction and recognized her as a famous actress. Seeing a cardboard box falling from above, Dora pulled Jin Dan out of the way. The moment he was saved, Jin Dan fell for her. He had her background checked, confirming she was single, and then decided to invest in the film. In addition to investing, Jin Dan sent gifts to Dora. Dora's mother, always driven by money, took her daughter to meet him, urging her to charm the wealthy sponsor. Dora politely agreed to a dinner date with Jin Dan. While they ate, her mother carefully observed him, recognizing his attraction to her daughter. Her eyes only saw money, and she was eager to marry her daughter off to this wealthy man. After the meal, Dora started preparing for filming, going to the salon. Bye Bye was also at the salon. Upon seeing Dora, she threw her coffee onto her without a word. Bye Bye was furious that Dora had accepted the role, as it meant she had been replaced. Dora explained that she had initially declined the role, and the production had approached Bye Bye. However, the new investor insisted on Dora. Dora couldn't refuse and accepted the role. Bye Bye was seething. Dora couldn't take it anymore and tried to confront her, but the staff intervened to separate them. The staff member explained that Bye Bye had a crush on the male lead of the new film. She was furious with Dora because Dora's return meant she had lost the opportunity to be in the film. Dora, increasingly annoyed, decided to retaliate. At the film crew's next party, Dora intentionally pulled the male lead onto the karaoke stage, shared a drink with him, and whispered sweet nothings in his ear. Pil-sung, who was also at the party, was called to dance. He disliked these kinds of gatherings and retreated to the toilet. When he returned to the room, he saw Dora being harassed by a male fan. Pil-sung stepped in, demanding an apology and threatening to report the incident to the police with evidence from the security camera. He declared, "Acting isn't about selling your beauty, it's about sharing a beautiful soul with the world." Dora thanked Pil-sung for his help, saying she wouldn't hold a grudge and was willing to work with him. As they shook hands in reconciliation, Dora felt a sense of familiarity with Pil-sung. He explained that he had a common face and was often mistaken for someone else. Dora accepted his explanation and returned to her room. She noticed the male lead sitting alone and remembered Bye Bye's insults. She tossed her hair to the side, pulled down her shirt, and sat next to him, introducing herself as a fan. The male lead was drawn to her beauty and expressed interest in a romantic relationship. Dora feigned surprise, claiming she had heard he had a girlfriend and she wasn't interested in two-timing men. Hearing this, the male lead developed an ulterior motive and clinked his glass with hers. Filming officially began the next day. On the first day, there was a problem. The water truck, which had been booked in advance, couldn't arrive on time due to an accident. To ensure the smooth flow of filming, Pil-sung, the assistant director, stepped up and, with a staff member, stood high above, watering the set to simulate rain. During a break, the male lead sat next to Dora. Dora, loathing him, refused to talk to him. Bye Bye arrived at the set, creating a scene. The male lead had broken up with her the previous night. Bye Bye accused Dora of seducing her boyfriend and vented her anger on her. Pil-sung intervened. Dora explained that she wasn't interested in the male lead at all. This revelation surprised the male lead, and he was slapped in the face by a furious Bye Bye. He turned to confront Dora, blaming her for the situation. Dora had never expressed any desire for him, but her ambiguous comments had led him to misunderstand. She had subtly alluded to his breakup with his girlfriend. The male lead erupted in anger. Dora's temper flared. The two lead actors nearly came to blows in front of everyone. The conflict between the lead actors caused filming to come to a halt. The director, with a headache, acted as a mediator, finally managing to restart filming. However, the male lead was still angry. He deliberately taunted Dora. Before filming a kissing scene, he stuffed his mouth with garlic. Dora, unaware, closed her eyes, anticipating the kiss, but then smelled the garlic. She saw his garlic-filled mouth and slapped him. They argued again. Pil-seung came to advise Dora, explaining that the crew had worked hard since dawn to set up the scene and hoped the lead actors would respect their efforts and make amends. Dora, feeling embarrassed, realized her mistake and apologized to the male lead. The male lead, also feeling ashamed, apologized for scolding Dora. After resolving the conflict, Pil-seung brought Dora her favorite ice cream. Looking at his naturally curly hair, Dora was reminded of Dae-chung. She muttered, "Pil-seung is like Dae-chung. Both of them are gauze." Dora needed confirmation and ran towards Pil-seung, tripping and falling forward. Pil-seung caught her. A familiar feeling overwhelmed her, remembering how Dae-chung used to hold her. They quickly separated, awkwardly avoiding eye contact. They tried to make small talk to ease the awkwardness. Dora regained her composure and asked Pil-seung if he had any family members named Dae-chung. Pil-seung quickly denied it. Dora thought back and realized that there were many people named Go. It was unlikely to be a coincidence. Speaking of Dae-chung, she said, "He's actually been pursuing me for a long time. He was my first love." The smile on Pil-seung's face froze. This was completely the opposite of the truth. Back then, it was Dora who had followed him around and claimed he was her first love. Pil-seung returned to the set, bewildered. The crew was preparing for the next shot when they received news that Dora's stunt double had been in an accident on the way to the set. Dora, unwilling to delay the production, offered to do the stunt herself, which involved rolling down a slope. The director couldn't allow the lead actress to take such a risk and chose Pil-seung as the stunt double. As the assistant director, Pil-seung was always where he was needed. He quickly changed clothes, donned a wig, and started filming. Dora stood by, watching Pil-seung roll down the slope multiple times. After several takes, the director finally yelled cut. Pil-seung climbed up from the pile of dry leaves, his hair covered in foliage. Seeing Pil-seung in a female outfit, Dora couldn't help but laugh. After spending several days together, Pil-seung couldn't help but think about Dora's face. Dora also often found herself remembering Pil-seung in his female attire. Whenever she thought of him, she worked more enthusiastically, finding renewed joy in her work. Today's scene involved a simple water splashing sequence, but it required multiple takes. Dora kept forgetting her lines after the splash, and at other times, she fell too hard, causing the male lead to complain of pain. He suspected she was doing it on purpose. Their already strained relationship escalated into a full-blown argument. The actors' discord caused the most stress to Pil-seung, the assistant director. He went to Dora, bringing her spicy rice cakes, her favorite, and a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Dora was pleased and offered him a cup of tea that her mother had brewed, falsely claiming she had prepared it early that morning. She even gave him the entire teapot, instructing him to finish it. Dora thought Pil-seung was on her side and bought him a hat to express her gratitude for his care. However, she soon discovered a harsh truth. After filming ended, Dora wanted to eat sushi. Coincidentally, Pil-seung was having dinner with the male lead at the same restaurant. To secure his career, Pil-seung was trying to win over both parties, flattering both Dora and the male lead. He pretended to be on the male lead side, saying that working with Dora was exhausting and that he had given her the flowers to appease her so she wouldn't make things difficult for the male lead. Dora left in her car, ignoring Pil-seung as he ran after her. Pil-seung deeply regretted his words, wishing he could seal his mouth shut and never speak again. He had to make amends. Early the next morning, he went to apologize to Dora, explaining that he had been trying to keep the filming running smoothly. Dora hated fair-weather friends and, upon hearing his explanation, became furious, ordering him to disappear from her sight. Still angry, Dora refused to see Pil-seung, and the director, wanting to keep things peaceful, made Pil-seung disappear from her sight. That day, Pil-seung's aunt came to the set. She recognized Dora as the child who had rented their house. Seeing her nephew being mistreated, she wanted to confront Dora. Pil-seung comforted his aunt, explaining that he hadn't revealed his identity to Dora and that the situation was already messy enough. He didn't want her to get involved. He also reminded her not to mention Dora in front of his mother. Because of the conflict with Pil-seung, Dora's filming was affected. She angrily declared, "If I see you again, I'll make you disappear." Pil-seung, anxious about his job, sat dejected in his room. His aunt, feeling sorry for her nephew, wanted to meet with Dora and tell her to stop bullying Pil-seung. The more she spoke, the angrier she became, and her voice grew louder, overheard by Pil-seung's mother outside the door. It was all over now. His mother now knew he was working with Dora. Her hatred for Dora's mother, who had been responsible for the death of her father, still burned bright. Now, Dora was tormenting her son, and she couldn't stand idly by. The family tried to comfort her, saying that filming would end soon and they wouldn't see each other anymore. After much persuasion, they managed to dissuade her from confronting Dora. Pil-sung reflected on his actions and realized he had been wrong. He went to Dora's house and happened to see her getting out of a car, intoxicated, being supported by Jin-dan. It turned out that Dora had been feeling upset after filming and had gone to a bar for drinks. Jin-dan, who had a crush on her, had bribed her manager beforehand. After receiving a call from his manager, Jin-dan rushed to the bar, pretending to have a chance encounter with Dora. This was the scene Pil-sung witnessed. He hid and watched them enter the building together. Shortly after, Jin-dan emerged, making plans to meet a girl at the bar. From their conversation, Pil-sung deduced that Jin-dan already had a girlfriend. This was true. To be with Dora, Jin-dan had proposed breaking up with his girlfriend that night. Jin-dan began pursuing Dora, sending her flowers and food deliveries to the set. The director, seeing this, gossiped with Pil-sung that Jin-dan was a notorious womanizer, known as a fresh actress killer. He was worried that Dora, in her naivete, would be deceived. Hearing this, Pil-sung reminded Dora to investigate Jin-dan thoroughly before making any decisions about their relationship. Upon seeing Pil-sung, Dora erupted in anger. The director, helpless, had no choice but to ask Pil-sung to leave the film crew. For his future, Pil-sung went to see Dora, hoping she would remember their past and not drive him away. He said, "I am Dae-chung, the one who used to give you rides on my bicycle. Please, Dora, give me another chance." Pil-sung recounted many old memories they shared and explained that his mother was superstitious and believed his real name wasn't good, so she changed it to Pil-sung. Dora, remembering him as her former neighbor and the boy she had liked, didn't make things difficult for him. With Dora's intervention, Pil-sung was allowed to stay on the film crew. Looking at Pil-sung, busy on the set, Dora found it hard to believe. She had rented her family's house back then. He often gave her rides on his bicycle, and they played together, leaving behind many beautiful memories. The next scene was to be filmed on a deserted island. After finishing work, the film crew boarded a boat to leave. Dora, having boarded early, realized she had left her phone behind and returned to the island to retrieve it. Coincidentally, Pil-sung had left his bag there. They both got back on the boat. While Dora was searching for her phone, she heard the ship's horn. She and Pil-sung had been left behind on the island. Dora contacted her manager, demanding the boat return for them, but the rough seas made it impossible to turn around. The director had no choice but to leave them on the island overnight. The temperature dropped drastically at night. Pil-sung built a campfire, shared food and water from his bag with Dora, and found a suitable spot for a makeshift bathroom. He stood guard nearby, singing loudly so she would know he was close. Dora grew tired and Pil-sung put his jacket over her, causing her to lean against him. Dora slept soundly. When she woke up, she couldn't find Pil-sung and worriedly went searching for him, calling his name. Pil-sung, returning from the bathroom, was greeted by Dora, who had run into his arms. She had thought he had left her alone on the island. They spent the night together on the island. Dora woke up early, covering Pil-sung with her jacket. She stared at his face from close range until he opened his eyes. To avoid embarrassment, she hit Pil-sung on the head, claiming there were mosquitoes. She stood up, changing the subject, and pointed to the rainbow appearing in the sky. Dora worked year-round, rarely taking time off. She even considered buying the island and building a villa there to enjoy a slower pace of life. Just as she thought this, a boat appeared in the distance. Pil-sung excitedly waved his hand. How did the boat get here so fast? It could have come a little later. Back home, Dora couldn't stop thinking about the time she had spent with Pil-sung on the island. Before going to sleep, she was curious about what he was up to. She looked at his social media profile and saw a selfie of him. She couldn't help but compliment him on his good looks. She thought to herself, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" Dora tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. The next day at the set, she dressed up, looking forward to seeing Pil-sung. Just then, Pil-sung and a female colleague passed by her. The colleague stumbled, almost falling, and Pil-sung quickly helped her gather her belongings. Dora stared intently at them, suspecting that the colleague was deliberately flirting with Pil-sung. Next, Pil-sung reviewed today's scene with the female colleague. Seeing them hugging and being close, Dora ran over and offered to practice the scene with Pil-sung to get used to the terrain. Dora successfully got the opportunity to roll down the slope with Pil-sung. Unexpectedly, Pil Sung's head hit a tree. Dora thought he had fainted and panicked, crying and calling out, "Oh my God." Pil Sung was fine, but Dora's reaction surprised everyone. Dora claimed she was just acting. After filming Wrapped, actress Dora returned to her hotel and received a call from Jindan's mother. It turned out that she had arranged a blind date for her son. Jindan had declined, saying he was dating Dora. Hearing that her son was dating an actress, Jindan's mother was furious and demanded to meet Dora immediately. She disapproved of Dora's acting career and ordered them to break up. Dora, caught between laughter and tears, explained to her that she didn't have romantic feelings for Jindan. Before leaving, Dora took the opportunity to educate her on the importance of not discriminating against any profession and not looking down on other people's work. Jindan's mother returned home, furious, and recounted the entire story to her son. Jindan was confused and decided to confront Dora himself to get to the bottom of it. He believed they were dating and blamed Dora's mother for the misunderstanding. It turned out that Dora's mother was a gambling addict with mountains of debt. Knowing Jindan was attracted to her daughter, she secretly orchestrated everything. She agreed to let Dora go to a musical with Jindan and pretended to have a stomachache to create an opportunity for them to be alone. Then, she questioned Dora about her feelings for Jindan. When she learned that Dora didn't have any feelings for him, Dora's mother lied to Jindan, claiming that Dora loved the date and praised his romantic and charming qualities. She asserted that women wouldn't easily compliment a man's charm if they weren't interested. Deceived by Dora's mother, Jindan believed they were officially dating. Seizing the opportunity, Dora's mother asked Jindan for a loan. Without any suspicion, Jindan transferred 500 million won to his future mother-in-law. Looking at the money in her account, Dora's mother vowed to turn this wealthy young man into her son-in-law. Under her manipulation, Jindan gifted Dora a necklace. Dora didn't like receiving unsolicited gifts and gave it back to her mother to return to Jindan. Her mother continued to fabricate the situation and sent Jindan a picture of Dora wearing the necklace, saying she loved it. Finally, Jindan and Dora had a direct conversation. Dora confirmed she had no romantic feelings for him and asked him to take back the necklace. Speaking of the necklace, Dora's mother, again caught up in the whirlwind of gambling, pawned it for money to gamble. She lost everything. Just as she left the casino, she received a call from Dora and Jindan. Realizing the situation, she quickly devised a plan to deal with Jindan. She blamed everything on Jindan's mother, claiming that she had independently arranged a meeting with Dora and demanded they break up. That's why Dora was coldly rejecting Jindan. Regarding the necklace, she promised to persuade Dora to accept it. Jindan believed Dora's mother's words and thought her sudden appearance had hurt Dora. Dora was completely unaware of these behind-the-scenes shenanigans. She went to the film set and happened to see her colleague bandaging the wounds of Pil Sung, the assistant director. Dora interrupted them and invited Pil Sung to dinner with her. Dora arrived at the meeting place first. Seeing Pil Sung approaching, she stared at him, speechless. They ate and chatted. Pil Sung mentioned his unrequited first love with a hint of sadness, and tears welled up in his eyes. Dora, irritated, secretly stuck a note on his back that read, "I'm an idiot." Pil Sung, teased throughout the journey home, went to the restaurant owner to confirm that Dora was the one who had put the note on his back. He couldn't understand why Dora hated him so much that she would play such childish pranks, humiliating him in front of others. Confronted by Pil Sung, Dora confessed her feelings. She was angry because she had seen the man she secretly loved crying over his first love. After confessing, Dora assumed they were now a couple. Pil Sung, regaining his composure, rejected her feelings. He said he wasn't interested in her. Dora believed that he was just flustered and that he would soon contact her. When Pil Sung didn't call, Dora decided to take the initiative. She pulled Pil Sung to a corner on the set and confidently asserted that as a famous actress, he would be surprised and happy to be confessed to by her. Seeing Dora's self-absorption, Pil Sung once again confirmed that she wasn't his type. Dora, increasingly angry, confronted him, insisting that he had feelings for her. She claimed that he was hesitant because of the huge gap in their social status. She was a beloved actress, and he must feel pressured dating her. Pil Sung once again confirmed that he truly wasn't interested in Dora. Dora felt hurt. Just then, Jindan called her. To get back at Pil Sung, Dora agreed to have dinner with Jindan. Seeing that Pil Sung had no intention of stopping her, Dora reluctantly went to meet Jindan. Jindan brought gifts and knelt before Dora, confessing his love and asking to be with her. Dora was taken aback by his actions. She had come to clarify the misunderstanding between them. Seeing Dora's refusal, Jin Dan couldn't accept the truth and unexpectedly embraced her. Dora, terrified, yelled that she really didn't like him. Jin Dan, enraged, questioned Dora why she didn't like him. Was it because he was the son of a concubine and she looked down on him? Dora, frightened, ran out of the restaurant. As she exited, she ran into Pil-sung. Seeing a familiar face, Dora's fear subsided. Before they could speak, fans recognized Dora. She quickly ran away, with Pil-sung in pursuit. They hid in a small alley to escape the enthusiastic crowd. Standing close together, they inadvertently shared a passionate kiss. The actress arrived at the film set and removed her bathrobe in front of everyone. To pay off her mother's gambling debts, she was forced to take this path. This actress was Dora. She was in love with Pil-sung, the film's assistant director. They had known each other since childhood, and Dora had secretly harbored feelings for him for a long time. Years later, they met again, and Dora pursued Pil-sung fiercely, initiating a kiss. A moment later, Pil-sung regained his composure and quickly pulled away from Dora. Unlike Pil-sung's embarrassment, Dora was filled with happiness. This kiss confirmed her belief that Pil-sung had feelings for her. Although he continued to deny it, saying he couldn't possibly like Dora, Pil-sung smiled contentedly in his dreams, reliving their kiss. Seeing Dora beautifully dressed at the set, Pil-sung couldn't take his eyes off her. Just like when they were kids, Dora chased after Pil-sung and proactively invited him out that night. He said he wouldn't go but kept checking his watch, afraid Dora would wait for him in vain. Pil-sung wrestled with his thoughts, unsure whether to meet Dora. Just then, she called him and said something in a panic, then hung up. Pil-sung, thinking Dora was in danger, rushed to the meeting spot. Dora, safe and sound, appeared behind him. Pil-sung, worried, kept asking if she was hurt. Seeing his concern, Dora was delighted. Pil-sung realized he had been tricked, but it was too late. Dora dragged him to an amusement park, and they played all the exciting rides. The wonderful date was unforgettable for Pil-sung. He kept smiling and happily texted Dora. He had typed a few words when he suddenly woke up, realizing he shouldn't be getting so close to Dora. To stop Dora's illusions, Pil-sung confessed to her that he did have feelings for her. Though he liked Dora, Pil-sung wanted to focus on his career. He was still an unknown assistant director and didn't want their relationship to be exposed and jeopardize his career. So Dora was rejected. During their final time working together, Pil-sung remained distant from Dora to prevent her from holding out hope. Time flew by, and the final day of filming arrived. Dora couldn't bear to be away from Pil-sung and arranged to meet him. She said she would wait for him. Dora kept her promise, patiently waiting at the cafe until it closed. Meanwhile, Pil-sung had finished work and was on his way home. Memories of Dora suddenly flooded his mind. He couldn't hold back his emotions and ran to the cafe. Fortunately, Dora was still waiting outside. This time, Pil-sung didn't hide his true feelings. He confessed, "I came because I miss you. I came because I don't want to be away from you." Dora agreed to date him. They officially became a couple, but had to keep their relationship a secret. They met secretly in secluded places, sneaking handholds in elevators when no staff members were around. The drama received rave reviews after its broadcast. The film crew celebrated their success with a party. Suddenly, Jin Dan, the investor, appeared. He had fallen for Dora, but was repeatedly rejected. Seeing Dora in the male lead acting affectionately, Jin Dan assumed they were dating, and that was why she rejected him. Driven by blind jealousy, Jin Dan dragged the male lead into the bathroom and beat him mercilessly. He loudly declared that Dora was his woman. The commotion attracted everyone's attention. The two men were pulled out. After hearing the story, Dora explained that she had no relationship with the male lead. The incident led to gossip about Dora. The female staff members speculated that there was no smoke without fire, and that Dora must have been involved with Jin Dan to cause the male lead to be beaten. Hearing the whispers, Dora felt deeply hurt. Fortunately, Pil-sung believed her and comforted her. However, things weren't over yet. Jin Dan angrily confronted Dora's mother, blaming her for lying and making him believe Dora had feelings for him. Dora's mother still tried to justify herself, claiming she had been trying to play matchmaker, but Jin Dan was incapable of winning a woman's heart. Provoked by Dora's mother, Jin Dan threatened that if Dora didn't fall for him within a month, he would use his connections to get her blacklisted from the entertainment industry. Dora's mother, not wanting to lose this money tree, started praising Jin Dan to her daughter. Dora ordered her mother to return all the gifts Jin Dan had given her. She would never fall for a man like him, who was so erratic. After saying this, Dora prepared to go on a date with Pil Sung. She lied to her manager, saying she was going to meet friends. After her manager left, Dora got into Pil Sung's car. She didn't know that her manager had secretly followed them and informed her mother. Dora's mother realized something was wrong. That evening when she returned home, she witnessed Pil Sung taking Dora home. The two were affectionate and reluctant to part ways. This time Dora's mother recognized Pil Sung as Dae-chung from years ago. Not long after, Dora's mother happened to run into Pil Sung and his mother at a restaurant. She recognized Pil Sung's mother as the daughter of the landlord from their old house, and also saw Pil Sung, now grown up. Because of the feud between the two families, Dora's mother stormed over, dragged them aside, and demanded to know what Pil Sung's intentions were in approaching her daughter. Seeing the escalating situation, Dora pulled her mother back home. She frankly admitted that she was dating Pil Sung. Whether her mother agreed or not, she wouldn't break up with him. Unable to dissuade her daughter, Dora's mother went to Pil Sung's house and raised a fuss. She accused Pil Sung's mother of instructing her son to seduce her daughter. Hearing that Pil Sung was dating Dora, his mother was shocked. She pressed her son for a denial. Pil Sung stood in silence, then apologized to his mother and admitted his relationship with Dora. He knew that his grandfather's death was connected to Dora's mother. Loving the daughter of his enemy would undoubtedly break his mother's heart. To spare his mother's feelings, Pil Sung broke up with Dora, unbeknownst to her. Dora's first reaction was that her mother had forced Pil Sung to break up with her. She confronted her mother, who vehemently denied it, claiming she had never met Pil Sung. Dora believed her mother and went to Pil Sung's house to ask for an explanation. There, she encountered Pil Sung's grandmother. The grandmother berated Dora and revealed the truth. Pil Sung's grandfather had been killed by Dora's mother. Because of this feud, their families could never be in-laws. Hearing this, Dora returned home and questioned her mother about Pil Sung's grandfather's death. In this moment, she understood why her mother had suddenly taken her and her siblings away years ago. Seeing her daughter screaming in front of her, Dora's mother was forced to admit that she had intentionally ingratiated herself with Pil Sung's grandfather for money. Back then, Dora's mother had been raising her 3 children alone, burdened by the debt her husband left behind. If she hadn't done that, she and her children wouldn't have survived to this day. She accepted all criticism because she had sacrificed everything for her children. Dora had no right to judge her. Seeing that her mother wasn't remorseful, Dora went to Pil Sung's house and knelt down to apologize to his mother. She had just learned about the death of the old man because of her mother and wanted to make amends for her mother. Leaving Pil Sung's house, Dora ran into him. Now she knew why he had broken up with her. She was heartbroken that her lover had suffered alone, all because of her mother. After the breakup, they both mourned their lost love. Pil Sung turned to alcohol to drown his sorrows. He came home and collapsed on his bed, crying uncontrollably. Pil Sung's mother witnessed this scene, her heart breaking. Though not her biological child, she had raised him like her own since he was little, and she couldn't bear to see him suffer. After much deliberation, she agreed to let Pil Sung and Dora get back together. Pil Sung was a dutiful son. He didn't want his mother to endure hardship for his happiness, so he refused to get back together with Dora. Knowing her son's thoughts, Pil Sung's mother arranged a private meeting with Dora and Pil Sung, giving them a chance to be together. Understanding her mother's heart, Dora ran into Pil Sung's arms. They embraced each other tightly. The first thing Dora did after getting back together with Pil Sung was to inform her mother. She threatened to retire from acting and move to the United States with Pil Sung if her mother interfered with their love. Knowing her daughter was serious, Dora's mother yielded. She turned to beg Jin Dan to let Dora go, because she couldn't change her daughter's heart. Feeling like he was being made a fool of, Jin Dan used his power to cancel all of Dora's endorsement deals. Dora's mother, on her knees, begged Jin Dan for forgiveness. She had been secretly gambling and lost a lot of money, but Dora was unaware. Jin Dan had investigated and deliberately pressured Dora and her mother. With no other choice, Dora's mother continued to create opportunities for Jin Dan. She secretly took Dora to Jin Dan's villa and then found an excuse to leave. Entering the house, Dora was stunned to see Jin Dan. Fear overwhelmed her. At that moment, Dora realized that she had been tricked by her mother and Jin Dan. Dora didn't want to argue with Jin Dan. She just wanted to leave immediately. Seeing Dora's continuous refusal, Jin Dan lost his patience, locked her in a dark room, and forced her to reconsider, to decide if she wanted to sit down and talk to him properly. After a few hours, Dora calmed down and agreed to talk to Jin Dan. He was overjoyed and poured her some wine, preparing food for her. When Jindan was distracted, Dora escaped from the villa. The location was remote, and Dora had to cross a dark forest to find her way out. After some struggle, she finally found a passerby and borrowed their phone to call Pil Sung to pick her up. Seeing Dora covered in dust, Pil Sung worriedly inquired about her. Dora didn't want to mention what had happened and lied, saying she had argued with her mother. On the way back, Dora recalled her childhood, how she had always been a money-making machine for her mother. Even when she was sick, she wasn't allowed to rest, forced by her mother to film. Finally, she fainted on set. Dora sobbed uncontrollably. She was exhausted from being treated as a money-making tool by her mother. Things got worse. Dora started to doubt whether she was her mother's biological child. If she was, why would her mother be so heartless and abandon her at that villa? Dora's mother, however, felt that Dora was being unreasonable. Having a wealthy man like Jindan in love with her was a blessing, yet she was cruelly rejecting him to chase after that broke-ass guy. The two of them had a fierce argument. Dora decided to cut off all ties with her mother. She packed her belongings, preparing to leave. Her mother tried to stop her and apologize. Just then, court officials arrived to seal her assets because Dora's mother had defaulted on her debts. Dora left in silence after learning that her mother had spent all their savings and mortgaged their assets to borrow money, totaling 3.3 billion won. Shocked, Dora fainted and was taken to the hospital. Upon waking up, she was told everything that had happened. Dora confronted her mother. At this point, all she wanted was to deal with the debt. She begged Dora to marry Jindan. If she agreed, he would help them. Dora didn't want to marry for money. She wanted to find a way to solve it herself. However, news of Dora and her mother spread everywhere. Endorsement deals were canceled, and Dora had to shoulder a huge penalty for breach of contract, amounting to 10 billion won. Hearing this, Dora felt like the world was ending. Lying helpless on the bed, Dora was again pressured by her mother, who advised her to do a nude photo shoot. She said she would turn the photos into artworks. With no other choice, Dora reluctantly accepted this degrading job. In the entertainment industry, secrets don't stay hidden forever. News of Dora's selling her body quickly spread. Pil Sung, hearing the news, rushed to stop Dora. But at this point, what she needed most was money. She coldly sent Pil Sung away. Back on set, after putting on makeup, Dora put on her bathrobe and stepped out. She turned her back to the camera and slowly removed her robe, revealing her bare shoulders. However, Dora couldn't overcome her mental barrier. She ran away from the set in tears. Dora's mother advised her to do a nude photo shoot to solve her immediate problems. And to resolve everything permanently, the best solution was to marry Jindan. Dora thought about it and decided this was the safest option. She met with Jindan and agreed to marry him. Dora informed Pil Sung about her marriage. Not understanding her situation, Pil Sung couldn't accept that she would sacrifice her whole life for money. After going through so many hardships, Dora didn't want to succumb to fate and return to her previous difficult life. Their love had succumbed to harsh reality. Pil Sung, heartbroken, had to let Dora go. Soon after, news of Dora and Jindan's engagement filled the newspapers. Jindan accompanied Dora to try on wedding dresses. The closer the wedding day, the more anxious and uneasy Dora became. She collapsed on the floor and sobbed uncontrollably. To escape her current situation, she grabbed Jindan's outstretched hand. But when she thought about it, she couldn't marry someone she didn't love. Despite Dora's feelings, Jindan was determined to go ahead with the engagement as planned. Dora couldn't do it. She ran out of the bridal shop and went home. Seeing her daughter return alone, Dora's mother and brother sensed something was wrong. They were both panicked, fearing that Jindan wouldn't help their family anymore. Dora begged her mother not to force her to marry Jindan, saying she still had a chance to start over. Her mother scolded her. "You were young before, but now you're older, and you want to start over?" Dora couldn't take it anymore. Her mother was the one who had made the mistake, and she should bear the consequences, even if it meant going to jail or anything else. Exhausted from the argument, Dora went into her room and slammed the door shut. Determined not to marry Jindan, Dora started working hard. She accepted all filming opportunities, no matter what the show was. Her mother received a collaboration offer from a cosmetics company and asked Dora to meet at the hotel to discuss it. Upon arriving, Dora was lured into a room by the director, while all her actions were secretly recorded by hidden cameras. There was no one else in the room. Clearly, this wasn't a business meeting. Dora pushed him away and ran out of the room. Overwhelmed with anger, Dora confronted her mother. This time, her mother truly had no idea what had happened, but Dora no longer trusted her. She decided to cut off ties with her mother. Dragging her suitcase out of the house, Dora was surrounded by reporters. The photos of Dora entering the hotel room were leaked. The public buzzed with gossip about Dora selling herself. Everyone knew it was Jindan's dirty trick, a way to force her to submit. Facing this crisis, Dora worried that Pil Sung would misunderstand her, so she sought him out to explain. She insisted she was set up. However, recent events had left Pil Sung confused. He felt he no longer understood Dora. With such clear evidence, he didn't know who to believe. Dora was utterly desperate. Her mother was selfish, her boyfriend didn't trust her, and her fans had turned their backs on her. She had no motivation to live anymore. The next day, Pil Sung heard from his superiors that someone was trying to ruin Dora's reputation. They had orchestrated the whole prostitute scandal to slander her. His superior said that the director in the photo was just an extra, not a wealthy businessman at all. Pil Sung realized he had misunderstood Dora. He rushed to find her and apologize. On the way, he saw a video playing on a large screen, capturing Dora jumping into the river to commit suicide. Her body hadn't been found. Pil Sung found the extra actor. He was remorseful as well. He had accepted money to do a bad deed, but he never imagined things would go this far. Pil Sung demanded the truth, asking him to clear Dora's name. The actor begged for time, saying he needed to prepare himself to face the public. Pil Sung agreed. Unexpectedly, the actor fled the country. No one cleared Dora's name. She bore the shame. Because Dora was no longer there to earn money to pay off her debts, her mother was sent to prison. The people there recognized her as a cruel mother who lived off her daughter. They berated and insulted her without mercy. Fortunately, Dora was still alive. She had been washed ashore by the waves and rescued by an old woman. The old woman also had a tragic fate. Her son had died in a car accident, and her granddaughter had run away from home. Overwhelmed with grief, the old woman became ill, longing for her granddaughter's return day and night. Seeing Dora unconscious, she thought it was her granddaughter and took her to the hospital. Dora was seriously injured, with extensive facial damage and requiring reconstructive surgery. The doctor advised the old woman to prepare herself, as Dora's face might be changed after the surgery. The old woman didn't care about her appearance. She believed Dora was her granddaughter. After the surgery, Dora lost her memory. Hearing the old woman call her Ji Young, she thought it was her name. 2 years later, Dora lived with the old woman and had become accustomed to a peaceful life in the fishing village. One day, Pil Sung, now a director, came to the fishing village to film a movie. He ran into Dora and the old woman. Dora, having lost her memory, didn't recognize Pil Sung. He couldn't believe that the woman in front of him was his former lover. Watching the familiar filming scenes, Dora felt indescribable emotions. She went to the set to watch the filming. Coincidentally, the crew needed dogs. Dora immediately called all the dogs she knew to help. Seeing her granddaughter's passion for the work on set, the old woman approached the film crew and asked if they could give her granddaughter, Ji Young, a job. The next day, the crew came to find Dora. They had an assistant position open. Dora was overjoyed to accept. She worked diligently, enthusiastically, and thoughtfully. But the joy was short-lived. The crew finished filming in the area and prepared to return to Seoul. Hearing this, Dora couldn't help but feel sad. She was about to leave the job she loved. Returning home with a dejected look, Dora was surprised to see the film crew come looking for her. They were impressed with her work ethic and wanted to invite her to Seoul to work with them. Dora eagerly agreed, but then she remembered the old woman. She couldn't leave her alone. The old woman encouraged Dora to pursue her dreams, saying that everyone here was familiar and would take care of her. Following her advice, Dora went to Seoul. She joined Pil Sung's team and started her new job with enthusiasm. However, because she was inexperienced, Dora made mistakes constantly. She mixed up the schedule with a child actor, causing filming to be disrupted. Pil Sung, furious with his assistant, canceled the shoot. Although Dora apologized, Pil Sung was still angry. She felt very guilty and stayed to work late to recheck the schedule, afraid of making another mistake and being fired. Also working late, Pil Sung witnessed her efforts and calmed down. Worried that she wouldn't be safe going home alone, he offered to drive her. Dora was hesitant to bother him, but he insisted, so she agreed. Taking advantage of being alone with Pil Sung, she repeatedly apologized for her mistakes, hoping he wouldn't fire her. Before coming to Seoul, Dora had boasted to her neighbors about getting a job at the broadcasting station. If she were fired now, it would be very embarrassing. Pil Sung laughed at her cute expression. He promised not to fire her. Dora breathed a sigh of relief and cheerfully said goodbye to Pil Sung. Dora was walking along a dark street when she was suddenly stopped by a drunk man. He flirted with her and tried to grope her. Luckily, Pil-seung heard Dora's cry for help and arrived in time to save her. Seeing that Dora lived alone in a secluded place, Pil-seung was worried about her safety. His mother had a spare apartment, so he offered it to Dora at a low price. Dora was having a headache because rent in Seoul was so expensive. Hearing Pil-seung's offer, she was overjoyed. Dora spent her days with Pil-seung. He couldn't forget her either. He often dreamed of her, tormented by longing. Seeing Ji-young Dora, he always felt a sense of familiarity. He saw many similarities between Ji-young and Dora, so he suspected she might be related to her. Hearing Ji-young say this was her first time in Seoul, he abandoned that thought. Dora was also attracted to Pil-seung. One time, while watching Pil-seung jog in front of the convenience store, she tripped and almost fell. Pil-seung quickly caught her, pulling her into his arms. Even though she had lost her memory, Dora still clearly expressed her feelings for Pil-seung when they were together. She was strongly attracted to him. Pil-seung was confused by Dora's feelings. He always felt that Ji-young was Dora, but it was impossible. He worried that he had changed, developing feelings for another woman. Pil-seung blamed himself and started to deliberately avoid Dora. Unexpectedly, while living in a familiar environment, memories from the past started flooding back into Dora's mind. She was confused, thinking they were memories from a past life, and told Pil-seung about them. She said she saw a man singing and dancing in the courtyard. Pil-seung stared at Dora in shock. Only he and Dora knew about that. There was no way Ji-young could know. He became even more determined to avoid Dora, but the more he tried to avoid her, the more he ran into her. One day, he was almost hit by a falling ladder. Seeing this, Dora, without hesitation, pushed him out of the way and was injured. Seeing Dora lying in a hospital bed, Pil-seung couldn't help but feel heartbroken. However, he quickly regained his composure and told himself that the girl in front of him wasn't Dora. The images of Ji-young and Dora lingered in his mind, driving him crazy. He remembered that Dora had a star tattoo on her ankle. To confirm Ji-young's identity, he lifted the blanket. A star tattoo appeared before his eyes. Pil-seung became even more confused. He asked the old woman about Ji-young. She explained that 2 years ago, Ji-young was in an accident, lost her memory, and her face was disfigured, which is why she looked like this now. However, no matter how much Ji-young changed, she still recognized her granddaughter. The old woman's words made Pil-seung believe that Ji-young wasn't Dora. Pil-seung's mind was racing. He didn't know what to believe anymore. By chance, Pil-seung ran into a woman from the same village as the old woman. She revealed that there were rumors in the village that the current Ji-young wasn't the old woman's real granddaughter. Ji-young's appearance and personality were completely different from before, like two entirely different people. The woman's words made Pil-seung restless. He was determined to uncover Ji-young's true identity. He secretly took the straw that Dora's mother had used and Ji-young's toothbrush to do a DNA test. Looking at the results in his hand, Pil-seung burst into tears. It turned out that the girl he had been longing for all this time was right beside him. Worried that the past would cause Dora pain, Pil-seung didn't want her to recover her memories. He only cared about her as a colleague. He bought a lot of food and filled her fridge, diligently drove her to work, and always smiled when he was with her. Dora noticed the change in Pil-seung. He suddenly became very attentive, which made her confused. Not only that, Pil-seung's eyes were always on her, making her feel awkward. Once, she dropped her script on the floor because she was so flustered by his stare. Pil-seung rushed to her side, worriedly asking if she was hurt. Dora felt it was a bit too much and was confused. Looking at Pil-seung's passionate eyes, Dora became even more flustered. Pil-seung always found excuses to be close to Dora. He invited her to eat, gave her flowers, making her feel like they were dating. Unable to contain herself, she directly asked him if he liked her. All these years, Pil-seung had never forgotten Dora. However, he worried that if she recovered her memories, she would remember the painful events of the past, remember his cold attitude and doubts, and wouldn't forgive him. Not daring to face his feelings, he dodged Dora's question. Dora returned to her car in disappointment. She warned Pil-seung not to treat her well if he didn't like her, not to make her misunderstand. Pil-seung silently endured the pain in his heart. After that day, Dora ignored Pil-seung. But then she remembered his care for her. It was clear that he had feelings for her. Dora thought that there must be a reason. Maybe he was terminally ill, so he didn't dare to confess his feelings. The more she thought about it, the more reasonable it seemed. So she quickly went to find Pil-seung. Seeing him, She was so moved that she wanted to cry. Dora tearfully asked him what was wrong with him. Pil-sung was confused, not understanding what was happening. He thought Dora had been watching too many dramas, and that was why she was thinking this way. Dora was utterly disappointed. It turned out she was wrong. Pil-sung didn't have any feelings for her. She reminded Pil-sung not to treat her any differently, to avoid making her misunderstand. After saying this, she turned and walked away. The next day on set, Dora accidentally bumped into Jin Dan and spilled coffee on him. She quickly apologized and wiped the stain off his shirt. Jin Dan recognized the girl in front of him. She looked very much like Dora, the girl he was infatuated with. His heart started to race. Dora wanted to pay for Jin Dan's shirt, but when she learned that it cost 5 million won, she was stunned. At their next encounter, Dora honestly told Jin Dan that she really wanted to pay him back, but her current circumstances didn't allow it. Seeing Dora's confusion, Jin Dan felt a sense of familiarity and sympathy for her. He invited her to have dinner with him as a way of apologizing. Dora agreed. She took Jin Dan to a small restaurant. On the way there, it started raining. Fearing that Jin Dan's shirt would get wet, Dora took off her jacket and used it to cover them both. Jin Dan politely drove Dora home. At that moment, Pil-sung was standing at the door, waiting for Dora. Seeing her get out of Jin Dan's car, he immediately became wary. He knew Dora had suffered a lot because of Jin Dan and didn't want her to be close to him anymore. Dora, however, thought that Pil-sung was jealous. She happily confessed her feelings for him. However, Pil-sung immediately denied it, stating that they were only friends. Dora was incredibly sad. Her feelings weren't reciprocated, and Pil-sung kept doing things that made her misunderstand. She decided to keep her distance from Pil-sung. The next day, the hotel where the crew was staying to film was the same one where Dora was photographed for the prostitute scandal. As she stepped into the hotel, memories from the past flooded her mind. She panicked, screamed, and fainted. Pil-sung, worried, carried Dora into his car, intending to take her to the hospital, but she wanted to go home. Looking at Dora's weakness, Pil-sung felt incredibly sorry for her. In her fever, she vaguely remembered the scene of herself jumping into the river to commit suicide. Dora awoke in Pil-sung's arms. She realized that those terrifying memories weren't a dream. They were things that had actually happened to her. Pil-sung hugged Dora tightly and comforted her, saying it was just a dream. From this point on, he was determined to protect Dora, to let her live as Ji-young and forget the painful past. Pil-sung took care of Dora all night. Seeing the porridge and medicine he prepared, she felt warm and happy. Even though Pil-sung only saw her as a sister, she still wanted to indulge in this happiness. However, the intimate scene between Pil-sung and Dora was witnessed by their neighbors. They went to Pil-sung's mother and gossiped about their dating. Pil-sung's mother immediately denied it, but when she got home, she caught Pil-sung leaving Dora's room. Both Pil-sung's mother and grandmother were angry. They thought Dora wasn't worthy of him. They went to Dora's room and warned her not to have any designs on Pil-sung. Dora was sad, but she had to endure it, apologizing and promising to keep her distance from Pil-sung. Uncertain about what had happened, Pil-sung thought about it a lot and decided to stay by Dora's side. He prepared flowers and confessed his feelings for her. Dora responded coldly, saying that she didn't like him anymore. She couldn't accept his fickle behavior. Rejected, Pil-sung froze in place. Not only Pil-sung, but Jin Dan also started to develop feelings for Ji-young Dora. He frequently invited her shopping and to eat. When he took her home, he confessed his love. At the same time, Pil-sung came to find Dora with flowers in hand. He overheard their entire conversation. This wealthy playboy was truly twisted. Rejected by the actress he secretly loved, he pushed her to the brink. Initially, he cut off all of her business deals, forcing her to do a nude photo shoot to pay off her debts. Then, he spread false rumors about her being kept as a mistress. The actress collapsed, and her boyfriend didn't believe her. Soon after, news of actress Dora's death spread. Everyone thought Dora was dead, but unbeknownst to them, she was washed ashore by the sea. She lost her memory and started a new life as Ji-young in a small village. One day, by chance, she began working for director Pil-sung's team, her former boyfriend. There, she met the wealthy playboy Jin Dan again, the one who had pressured her. Jin Dan didn't recognize her as Dora. He fell for Ji-young at first sight. After expressing his feelings, Jin Dan gave her time to think and wasn't in a hurry for an answer. Dora was breathing a sigh of relief when she was startled by Pil-sung, who was standing behind her with a cold expression. Pil-sung had just been rejected by Dora when he confessed his feelings, so he pretended to be her brother to lecture her. forbidding her from getting into a stranger's car. Hearing this, Dora became angry and insisted that Jin Dan wasn't a stranger, saying she would be dating him from now on. Pil Sung was terrified. He was worried that Dora would accept Jin Dan's proposal in front of him, so he quickly shut up, forcing out a crooked smile that was even uglier than crying. He begged Dora not to date Jin Dan and to date him instead. Dora found this ridiculous. Pil Sung had rejected her confession before, and now that she was in the arms of another man, he was flattering her, but it was too late. Dora quickly ran home, wondering what was going on, why men were lining up to confess their love to a simple country girl like her. Pil Sung returned home, thinking of ways to prevent Dora from being with Jin Dan. He couldn't let Jin Dan hurt Dora again. Actually, Jin Dan wasn't single. He had a fiancée, and they were getting married in a year. Early the next morning, Pil Sung proactively picked up Dora for work. Dora deliberately kept her distance and took the bus to the company. Pil Sung followed her, standing next to her on the bus. Suddenly, the bus braked sharply. Pil Sung lost his balance, and Dora quickly caught him, and they accidentally embraced each other. Pil Sung savored this moment, actively moved closer to Dora, teasing her that she still had feelings for him. Dora was embarrassed and didn't want to pay attention to Pil Sung. After a day of work, Jin Dan took Dora to an apartment. He wanted her to become his girlfriend, move into the apartment under his name, and become his Kim Oc Tong Kiu, a beautiful woman kept in seclusion. He told her, "You're the replacement for Dora. Stay with me until Dora comes back." In the evening, Jin Dan drove Dora home. Pil Sung had been waiting at the door. Seeing Dora enter the house, he made a request, wanting her to agree to eat 3 meals with him before deciding whether or not to date. But Dora was adamant. Having no other choice, Pil Sung lied, saying he was in trouble, to trick Dora into going to the park. Seeing her worried expression, he was overjoyed, confident that Dora liked him too. Pil Sung asked to date Dora, begging her for a chance. Dora hesitated and allowed Pil Sung to take her on a date. They parted ways. Dora looked at the photo they had taken together and felt a sweet feeling in her heart. Pil Sung returned home and found an uninvited guest, Dora's mother. Dora's mother couldn't bear to live in poverty. She shamelessly went to borrow money from Jin Dan to start a business, vowing to train a new Dora. She had found a new star and gotten a small role for her on TV. Initially, she thought she could help the new star become famous. But unexpectedly, Dora was discovered by the screenwriter for her acting talent during a stunt. The screenwriter felt this small role was made for Dora. Pil Sung, as the director, had the final say. He was determined to let Dora play the role. Dora's mother learned that the director was Pil Sung, so she went to his house to flatter him, hoping he would support the new star. Her shameless demeanor disgusted Pil Sung. He warned her to never step foot in his house again. Seeing that she couldn't get anything by begging, she immediately changed her attitude and scolded Pil Sung, saying he was the one who had seduced Dora, causing her daughter to be unable to marry into wealth, which is why she was in this situation. She grabbed Pil Sung's shirt and wouldn't let go. They were arguing when Dora saw them. She quickly ran over to stop her mother. The two looked at each other. Dora's mother didn't recognize the person in front of her as her daughter. She lunged at Dora, wanting to fight. The noise alerted Pil Sung's family, and they worked together to drive Dora's mother out. After getting rid of the troublemaker, Pil Sung's mother and grandmother thanked Dora for helping him. They knew that Dora didn't want to be suspected, so she no longer shared rides with Pil Sung. Pil Sung's mother remembered her previous bad behavior toward Dora and felt a little embarrassed. She specially cooked some delicious food to show her gratitude and didn't forget to remind her to keep her distance from Pil Sung. Looking at the delicious food and thinking about the gap that was almost impossible to bridge between her and Pil Sung, Dora couldn't bring herself to eat. Dora packed her things and left the house. She ran into her mother again. The more her mother thought about it, the angrier she got. She felt humiliated. To get revenge, she pushed a garbage cart in front of Pil Sung's door. Pil Sung's mother and grandmother appeared, chased her away, and urged Dora to quickly go to work, saying they would clean up. After venting her anger, Dora's mother went to the broadcasting station to ask for a role for the new star. Encountering this nasty aunt again, Dora couldn't hold it in anymore and told the station director about all her mother's bad deeds. The director felt that she was going too far, and this time didn't take her side. Dora's mother became a pariah, avoided by everyone. No one dared to use the new star she had promoted. She could only take the new star to auditions, competing for roles with Dora. Dora performed brilliantly. Even her mother had to admire her acting skills. She was truly more talented than her new star. The screenwriter was very happy with Dora and came up with new ideas whenever she saw her. She not only revised the script, but also gave Dora equal lines to the supporting actress. Recognized for her talent, Dora was overjoyed. But Pilsung was not at all happy. He remembered how heartbroken Dora was when she was a public figure. He strongly objected to her entering the entertainment industry and resolutely refused to let the screenwriter revise her role. The fruits of her hard work were being denied. The screenwriter became angry and argued with Pilsung. They had a heated argument. The screenwriter threatened Pilsung, saying that if he didn't agree to revise the script, she would resign. Pilsung couldn't budge the screenwriter, so he had to compromise. Dora only then learned that Pilsung had been secretly hindering her career. This action not only failed to stop Dora, but also ignited her fighting spirit. She vowed to become a great actress. She also found a kind manager who wanted to work with her and signed a contract. This manager was the one who had previously worked with Dora. Pilsung tried to convince Dora not to act, worried that she would be like the old Dora, unable to handle public scrutiny. He couldn't bear to think that Dora might collapse and disappear again. But Dora wasn't concerned. She had gone through so much, the sea hadn't taken her life, so other things weren't a big deal. Moreover, she was Ji-young, not Dora, and she would have different choices than Dora. Unable to change Dora's mind, Pilsung decided to change tactics. If Dora loved acting so much, he would support her acting career and protect her. Knowing that Dora had an audition for a supporting role, Pilsung personally drove her to the audition and bought flowers to congratulate her. He even took her to see a play to improve her acting skills. Pilsung's 180-degree change in attitude confused Dora, who didn't know what he was up to. Pilsung didn't back down anymore. He took the bouquet he had prepared, and before Dora could refuse, he declared that today was the first day they were in love. Pilsung's words made Dora's heart jump out of her chest. She wanted to accept this happiness, but thinking of her mother's and Pilsung's grandmother's warnings, she had to restrain herself. Unfortunately, their affectionate scene was discovered by Pilsung's mother and grandmother. They angrily questioned Dora, asking why she had broken her promise. Hearing this, Pilsung stared in disbelief at the three women. His mother and grandmother were incredibly rude to Dora. At this moment, Pilsung realized that Dora wouldn't accept him because of his family. To protect Dora, Pilsung admitted that he loved her, but she hadn't reciprocated his feelings. However, he would continue to pursue her. Pilsung's mother and grandmother were shocked. They didn't expect him to love a simple country girl. Seeing the situation was becoming unstable, Dora slipped away to her room. Pilsung officially told his family that he loved Dora and hoped to take things further. His mother vehemently objected, but Pilsung was unwilling to yield. Unable to convince her son, Pilsung's mother turned to Dora. She apologized to Dora for misunderstanding her as someone clinging to her son, because her son was the one actively pursuing her. She awkwardly asked Dora not to accept Pilsung's proposal. Going back and forth, she continued to criticize Dora as a country girl, saying that Pilsung should find a more sophisticated woman worthy of his current status. Dora was disheartened and began to avoid Pilsung. Pilsung recognized her feelings and intercepted her at work, trying to talk to her. He said that they already liked each other and shouldn't waste time, that they should seize the happiness of the day and not miss out. He moved to hug his love, asking for nothing more than for Dora to be by his side. Dora was touched and decided to trust Pilsung one more time. "From now on, I won't let go of you. I'll always be by your side." After they confirmed their relationship, Dora immediately and flatly rejected Jindan's affections. This hurt Jindan. A handsome, wealthy man like him was rejected by a country girl. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became, his self-esteem deeply wounded. At the same time, Jindan's mother discovered that her son had stood up his fiancée to date Dora. She believed that Dora was attracted to her son's wealth and intentionally seduced him. She angrily stormed to Pilsung's house. Dora didn't understand what was happening. She had just stepped out of the house when Jindan's mother grabbed her hair and beat her. Pilsung's family heard the commotion and came running out, only to see Jindan's mother cursing Dora as a vixen, seducing her son. Pilsung's family already disliked Dora, and now seeing her involved with a wealthy playboy, they looked down on her even more. Dora was knocked to the ground by Jindan's mother. She kept explaining that she didn't seduce Jindan, but no one believed her. Fortunately, Pilsung came home from work. He knew Dora's character and protected her. Dora explained that she had no relationship with Jindan and had met with him today to reject his affections. Pilsung believed Dora unconditionally, and told his family that it was all a misunderstanding, that Dora was his girlfriend, and this was an unchangeable fact. But Pilsung's mother didn't like Dora. She believed Jindan's mother more and constantly tried to separate Dora and Pilsung. Jindan's mother, unable to vent her anger at Dora, went home and scolded her son. Jindan only then learned that his mother had gone to find Dora and caused trouble. Worried that Dora was upset, Jindan rushed to apologize. Dora wanted to clarify everything with Jindan, but her act of completely cutting off her relationship with him angered him. Jindan angrily grabbed Dora and wouldn't let go. Pilsung returned home to see this scene. Wanting to protect Dora, he punched Jindan. The two men started fighting. Pilsung punched with all his might, remembering the past. He didn't stop until Jindan was injured on the corner of his mouth. Beaten, Jindan was furious and even more determined to have Dora. His mother advised him to calm down. His fiancée's family was very powerful. If they got married, Jindan would have someone to support his career. Jindan thought carefully and ultimately couldn't give up his immense wealth. He agreed with his mother and promised to stay away from Dora. Meanwhile, the TV drama directed by Pilsung unexpectedly became popular. He became a sought-after director. Many entertainment companies competed to recruit him. A friend of Pilsung's mother wanted him to join her entertainment company and offered very generous conditions. This friend was Pilsung's biological mother. Years ago, after giving birth to him, she secretly left him at the door of Pilsung's mother's house. Pilsung's mother picked up the baby, raised him to adulthood, completely unaware of who his biological mother was. Pilsung remembered how Dora had been forced to do a nude photo shoot because of her overwhelming debt. If he had had money then, he could have helped Dora pay off her debts, and maybe everything that happened later wouldn't have occurred. Pilsung tried hard, hoping that one day he could succeed and have the power to protect the people close to him. Pilsung felt this was a good opportunity. He accepted his biological mother's offer. Coincidentally, Jindan, who had always been jealous of Pilsung, was the brother-in-law of Pilsung's biological mother. He vehemently objected to his sister-in-law signing a contract with Pilsung. Pilsung's biological mother didn't care. She dismissed all opposition and decided to cooperate with Pilsung. At the opening ceremony of the entertainment company, Jindan and Pilsung exchanged bullet-like glances. Taking advantage of going to the bathroom, Jindan deliberately sneered at Dora, saying she was a country bumpkin and that he was tired of her, so he was giving her to Pilsung. Pilsung couldn't bear Jindan insulting Dora, and the two of them started to fight again. Jindan and Pilsung fought furiously, attracting everyone's attention. People gathered to watch. At that moment, everyone learned that Jindan and Pilsung were fighting over a country girl. Jindan's fiancé felt humiliated and immediately called off their engagement. The wedding was canceled. Jindan's mother was furious. Jindan also felt a little regret. He felt that for a country girl, he had lost his future, which was totally not worth it. Witnessing this, Pilsung's family felt that it was all Dora's fault, that she was promiscuous. Pilsung's grandmother, without a word, went home and scolded Dora. "You little tramp. Did you seduce men everywhere?" Pilsung believed that Dora wasn't that kind of person. He argued with his grandmother a few words, and then took Dora away. They went to a small park. Dora only then learned from Pilsung that it was Jindan who had provoked Pilsung, and that was why they fought in public. His act of defending her and arguing with his family made Dora feel awkward. The more he protected her, the more his family would dislike her and refuse to accept their relationship. True enough, Pilsung's biological mother was the first to have an opinion. She felt that this country girl wasn't worthy of her son. But because Pilsung's biological mother hadn't revealed her identity, she didn't have the right to interfere with his life. She could only subtly hinder and obstruct their relationship. That day, Pilsung, along with the screenwriter and others, auditioned actresses for the supporting role in his new film. Dora was also on the audition list. Dora's acting was recognized by everyone present. However, Pilsung's biological mother disliked Dora and vehemently opposed her participation in the film. The screenwriter was very happy with Dora's acting, saying that no one was better suited for the role. Pilsung's biological mother, seeing that she couldn't convince the screenwriter, went to talk to Pilsung and asked him to stop Dora from participating. Pilsung felt that this would be unfair to Dora, as she had earned this role with her own ability. He refused his biological mother's unreasonable request. Having no other choice, Pilsung's biological mother had to ask Pilsung's mother to convince Dora to give up the role, which would sever the connection between them. Dora was already a thorn in Pilsung's mother's side. Now, Hearing that Dora had been cast as the supporting role and would be with Pil Sung all day, she was furious. She and Pil Sung's grandmother scolded Dora, calling her shameless and forcing her to refuse the role in Pil Sung's new film. Dora was very upset. She had tried her hardest to get this role, and yet she was being accused by Pil Sung's mother of getting the opportunity because of her relationship with him. Just as Pil Sung's mother was passionately scolding Dora, Pil Sung returned. Seeing Dora's resigned expression, he felt sorry for his love and argued with his mother and grandmother. Dora understood. She tried her best to stop them, not wanting Pil Sung to clash with his family because of her. Unfortunately, Dora's patience didn't make Pil Sung's mother and grandmother more restrained. The next day, Pil Sung had to go to Paris to accept an award. Before leaving, he worriedly told his mother not to make things difficult for Dora. But as Dora returned home from filming early in the morning, she ran into Jin Dan's mother, causing trouble. It turned out that she had discovered her son hadn't come home all night and thought he had gone to find Dora. The moment Dora returned from filming, Jin Dan's mother, regardless of Dora's explanations, insisted that she had stayed with her son all night, demanding that Pil Sung's mother kick Dora out. Pil Sung's mother was looking for an excuse to get rid of Dora. She didn't care if Jin Dan's mother's words were true or false, so she seized this opportunity to drive Dora away. Dora was deeply hurt but quietly endured everything, finding a new place to move. Meanwhile, Dora's mother had spent all 50 million won of Jin Dan's money in a short time. Sadly, the new star not only didn't become successful, but also criticized Dora's mother's abilities, saying she had no future and unilaterally canceled her contract. Dora's mother continued to use Dora's name to borrow money from Jin Dan. At that moment, Jin Dan was upset about his fiancée breaking off their engagement. He couldn't forget Dora and thought that if Jia Yong wasn't like Dora, he wouldn't have acted foolishly and ruined his engagement. He impatiently drove Dora's mother away. With no other options, she went to see a fortune teller. She cried and complained, saying that if her daughter hadn't died early, she wouldn't have been in this situation. Unexpectedly, the fortune teller solemnly told her that her daughter wasn't dead, and what's more, she was nearby. Dora's mother was dubious. She didn't understand why her daughter was alive, but hadn't come to find her. Feeling upset, she drank to forget her sorrows and unintentionally went to the broadcasting station. Just then, she ran into Ji Yong. In a flash, she saw the image of her daughter. She suspected Ji Yong's identity, and despite Dora's resistance, she ripped her shirt open. Dora had a birthmark on her back, exactly like Dora's. Dora's mother was astonished. She was certain that the person in front of her was her daughter. Dora was frightened by her mother's actions. She thought she was drunk and talking nonsense, so she didn't pay much attention. Then, Dora's mother calmed down. She thought about Dora's rustic appearance and couldn't connect her to her beautiful, famous daughter. But the birthmark on Ji Yong's body was exactly the same as her daughter's. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this couldn't be a coincidence. She remembered her daughter was allergic to walnuts and made a glass of walnut milk to test Dora. Dora was also allergic to walnuts. To be sure, Dora's mother did a DNA test, confirming that Dora was her biological daughter. She rushed to claim her daughter. Dora didn't remember anything about her mother and thought she was a scammer and that the DNA results were fake. Dora's mother couldn't explain, so she dragged Dora to get a DNA test immediately. As soon as the results came out, Dora was extremely shocked. Looking at her mother and brother, who were emotional in front of her, she felt completely unfamiliar. Unable to accept the truth for the moment, Dora ran to find her grandmother to confirm what had happened 2 years ago. Her grandmother told her that 2 years ago, she had found Dora on the beach. At that time, Dora was seriously injured, and she had worked hard to save her. Dora secretly took her grandmother's toothbrush for a DNA test. The results proved she wasn't her biological granddaughter. Dora was shocked. She didn't want to accept the truth. She couldn't bear to leave the person who had raised her, so she clung to her grandmother, refusing to leave. But while she was out, Jin Dan came to cause trouble. Jin Dan was still troubled by Dora. He didn't understand why his fiancée, who was superior to that country girl in every way, he still couldn't shake his feelings for Dora. He suspected he was mentally ill and went to see a doctor, forcing himself to focus on his fiancée. Every day, Jin Dan sent flowers to his fiancée to win her over, hoping to mend their relationship. Finally, Jin Dan's fiancée changed her mind and agreed to continue the engagement. However, fate brought them together. The more Jin Dan suppressed his feelings for Dora, the more he encountered her everywhere. One day, Jin Dan went to supervise the filming of his new movie. He accidentally discovered that Dora's mother had become the manager of Ji Yong. Jin Dan felt something was fishy and had someone investigate. The results showed that Dora's mother was living with Ji Yong. Just as Dora's true identity was revealed, so was Pil Sung's. Pil Sung's grandmother accidentally overheard a conversation between Pil Sung's biological mother and her daughter. During their conversation, she revealed that Pil Sung was her biological son. Pil Sung's grandmother couldn't believe it. She thought Pil Sung was an orphan. She never imagined that his biological mother had been pretending to be a close friend of Pil Sung's mother, secretly watching him grow up. Pil Sung's grandmother did a DNA test and discovered that Pil Sung's biological mother was indeed a close friend of Pil Sung's mother. Pil Sung's grandmother couldn't control herself and revealed this secret to Pil Sung's family. Pil Sung's mother remembered that this close friend had been particularly attentive to Pil Sung since he was a child. Now everything was clear. She was furious and fainted, thinking about how this close friend had been by her side all these years. Watching her raise Pil Sung's mother felt betrayed and incredibly angry. She stormed to her friend's company and without a word, grabbed her hair and beat her. For all these years, Pil Sung's mother had been grateful to her friend for helping her family. But now she discovered that her friend's purpose was to be near Pil Sung, watching him grow up. Pil Sung's mother was heartbroken. She felt tricked. She was determined not to let this friend appear in front of Pil Sung again. Pil Sung's biological mother knew she had been too greedy. She calmed down and decided that after Pil Sung finished filming his current movie, she would leave him and never cross the line again. From now on, Pil Sung would have only one mother, Pil Sung's mother. Just as the two mothers came to an agreement, Pil Sung stood outside the door and heard everything. The secret of his birth was out. Pil Sung was stunned, and his whole family couldn't accept the appearance of his biological mother. The adoptive mother lashed out at her best friend. Pil Sung was in turmoil, unable to accept the truth. At this moment, the old lady, who is also Ji Yong's grandmother, appeared by chance. Hearing the story, she attacked Pil Sung's biological mother to defend his family. Seeing her looking for Ji Yong, who is Du Ra, Pil Sung worried she might be lost and took her home. Meeting Du Ra, Pil Sung wanted to hug her, to release all the frustration and shock in his heart, but he didn't want to disrupt her current life. He pretended to be happy, hiding his sadness, and hurriedly said goodbye to her. Seeing his adoptive mother heartbroken, Pil Sung couldn't bear to hurt the woman who had raised him. Seeing her hate his biological mother like this, Pil Sung decided to cut off contact with her. Years ago, she had ruthlessly abandoned him to pursue her own happiness. Now, coming back had no meaning anymore. It was best for them to treat each other as strangers. Every word Pil Sung said pierced his biological mother's heart like 1,000 needles. She wanted to explain but didn't know where to begin. Tears just flowed like pearls off a string. Du Ra later learned about Pil Sung finding his biological mother from his brother. She suddenly understood that when Pil Sung came to find her, he had to suppress his sadness. She couldn't help but feel sorry for him. The old lady loved Pil Sung very much. While Du Ra was away, she went to find him. Because of her senility, she forgot to bring money and argued with the taxi driver. Pil Sung appeared in time to help her. It turned out the old lady had noticed Du Ra's feelings for Pil Sung. She wanted to help her granddaughter, so she secretly told Pil Sung about Du Ra's feelings. Hearing this, Pil Sung just smiled. He had known for a long time that Du Ra had feelings for him. From then on, he and the old lady secretly teamed up to win over Du Ra. Meanwhile, Pil Sung's biological mother wasn't living peacefully either. At first, she was able to watch her son from afar, occasionally showing concern for him under the guise of being an aunt. Pil Sung was always grateful for her concern. Now that the secret was out, Pil Sung didn't want to talk to her anymore. The immense grief made her collapse, and she looked haggard. Chairman Gong, her husband, was worried about his wife's health, so he pressed her for the reason she had argued with her best friend. He wanted to make peace between the two old friends, but what his wife feared most was the secret about her son being revealed. She begged her husband not to interfere with her affairs, but the more she tried to hide it, the more curious he became. Unable to get any information from his wife, he went to Pil Sung's adoptive mother to ask what happened. Pil Sung's mother didn't say much. She just told him to go home and ask his wife. Hearing that her husband had gone to see Pil Sung's adoptive mother, his biological mother felt that the secret couldn't be hidden for much longer. She was afraid that her husband would find out, and that when he did, he wouldn't only blame her, but their years of marriage would also be shattered. She decided to get a divorce first, leaving each other with a good impression. Hearing his wife ask for a divorce, Chairman Gong couldn't believe his ears. They had been married for so many years, he couldn't leave her and refused to get a divorce. Pil Sung's biological mother was determined. She moved to a hotel, refusing to go home no matter who persuaded her. Pil Sung's younger sister felt like she was sitting on a hot stove. She didn't want her parents to get a divorce, so she tried to persuade her mother. But her mother insisted on getting a divorce, saying she didn't want to hurt Chairman Gong. Her younger sister thought her mother was selfish. Years ago, she had abandoned her brother because she wanted to get married and have a new life. Now, she wanted to break up the family for her own sake. She couldn't accept her parents getting a divorce. Because she had lived in luxury since she was young, she couldn't handle this shock. She abandoned her usual image, dressed flamboyantly, and ran to a bar to drink. Her daughter's sudden disappearance threw the family into chaos, searching everywhere. Pil Sung's biological mother felt like she was sitting on a bed of coals, hurriedly going to see Pil Sung to ask about her daughter's whereabouts. Pil Sung suddenly remembered he seemed to have seen someone who looked like his sister passing by the bar. He quickly ran there and just in time rescued his sister from some harassing men. His biological mother also rushed to the scene, and the family of three was reunited in the most ironic situation. Seeing his daughter crying and sobbing, Pil Sung couldn't help but get angry and scold her. She burst into tears and said she wasn't as capable as her brother without her parents. She didn't know how to live. Those words touched Pil Sung's heart. For all these years, he hadn't had his biological parents around. He had to stand on his own. Pil Sung stared silently at the sight of his mother and daughter embracing each other. His heart was torn. He silently turned and left. Because of what his daughter did, Pil Sung's biological mother had no choice but to put aside the divorce and return to the family home. Pil Sung seemed to accept this outcome. Fortunately, he still had the old lady by his side. She wanted to match him with Du Ra, so she asked Pil Sung to take her sightseeing around Seon. Du Ra didn't want to interact with Pil Sung too much, fearing she would fall even deeper in love with him. But the old lady insisted that Pil Sung go with her. Du Ra reluctantly agreed to spend a day with Pil Sung. While her granddaughter wasn't paying attention, the old lady took her phone and sent a romantic text message to Pil Sung. Du Ra was shocked and wanted to explain that the text wasn't from her. Pil Sung ignored her explanation and deliberately took it as a confession from Du Ra. Du Ra was so angry that she wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Meanwhile, Du Ra's mother still owed 500 million won in high-interest loans. After being released from prison, she was in hiding, afraid of the creditors coming to find her. As she feared, the creditors caught her and forced her to pay back the debt immediately, threatening to kidnap her two sons if she didn't. Panicked, Du Ra's mother remembered that Jin Dan still loved her daughter, so she went to him and asked for 500 million won. She kept mentioning Du Ra, pretending to see Jin Dan as her son-in-law, saying that if not for Pil Sung, Du Ra would definitely have married him. Hearing Pil Sung's name, Jin Dan immediately became jealous. At this time, he still didn't know that Ji Zhong was actually Du Ra. Thinking that Ji Zhong had also been taken by Pil Sung, he couldn't believe that he had lost two women at the same time. Jin Dan comforted himself by thinking that luckily, Pil Sung and Ji Zhong had broken up, and his anger subsided somewhat. What Jin Dan didn't expect was that even though Pil Sung and Du Ra had broken up, they often met up and took care of the old lady together, with the old lady's matchmaking. Gradually, they couldn't ignore their feelings for each other and decided to get back together. Their happiness didn't last long. The creditors came to Du Ra's mother's house and forced her to sign an organ donation agreement. Unable to hide it any longer, she had to tell Du Ra about the 500 million won debt. Du Ra was shocked by the huge sum. Her mother cried miserably, fearing for her future. Once again, she wanted to sell her daughter to pay off her debts, just like she had before. As for Jin Dan, the image of Du Ra and her mother returning home that day haunted his mind. He was curious why Du Ra had moved out of Pil Sung's house. Although he was about to get married, Jin Dan didn't care about his fiancée at all. When he saw his fiancée in a wedding dress, he was stunned, as if Du Ra had come back to life. Jin Dan couldn't forget Du Ra. Ever since she passed away, his heart felt incomplete. He always felt that Ji Zhong was very similar to Du Ra, so he couldn't help but care for her and want to be with her. His mixed emotions made him drown himself in alcohol. However, alcohol couldn't drown out the longing in his heart. It only urged him to go find Du Ra's mother and ask about Ji Zhong. Du Ra's mother knew that if Jin Dan found out that Ji Zhong was actually Du Ra, the consequences would be dire. She tried to stop him. However, after thinking for a while, Jin Dan still didn't want to miss out on Ji Zhong, the girl who looked exactly like Du Ra. He met Du Ra's mother again, promising to help her pay off the 500 million won if she found a way for Ji Zhong to become his girlfriend. Once again, Du Ra's mother betrayed her daughter. But this time she took advantage of Du Ra's memory loss, deceiving her that she and Jin Dan had been lovers, about to get married, and they only broke up because Pil Sung interfered. Du Ra was dubious because when she was with Jin Dan, she didn't feel any romantic feelings at all. Her mother cried and begged her to meet Jin Dan once. Du Ra's heart belonged to Pil Sung. She didn't want to agree. But then she remembered her promise to Pil Sung that she would tell him if anything happened. Du Ra hesitated and went to Pil Sung's office. She thought for a long time, feeling that she shouldn't mention money to the person she loved, so she had to bear it all herself, and agreed to meet Jin Dan. They made an appointment at a restaurant. Seeing Ji Jong appear, Jin Dan was stunned. For the first time, he realized how beautiful Ji Jong was. After dinner, Jin Dan even took Du Ra home. He said, "Ji Jong, you are my girlfriend now, you know." Du Ra reluctantly agreed, telling herself that she had to like Jin Dan. However, she couldn't hold back her tears. Chairman Gong became increasingly suspicious that his wife was hiding something. Pil Sung's adoptive mother discovered that his biological mother was hiding Pil Sung's childhood photos and guessed that she was related to Pil Sung. Chairman Gong found his wife increasingly strange and hired people to investigate. The results shattered his dreams. It turned out that before marrying him, his wife had given birth to a son, and that son was Pil Sung. The entire Gong family felt deceived. Chairman Gong was furious, no longer caring about the years of marriage they had shared, and insisted on getting a divorce. The family drama shocked Jin Dan. Knowing that Pil Sung was his stepmother's illegitimate son, he grew to hate Pil Sung even more. Pil Sung was quickly being involved. Because of Pil Sung's identity, Chairman Gong ordered the film set to be shut down, forcing Pil Sung to leave the company. Pil Sung's biological mother had already collapsed mentally and was hospitalized. Hearing that Chairman Gong was treating her son like this, she struggled to get out of bed and begged him not to take his anger out on the innocent, saying it was all her fault. However, Chairman Gong no longer wanted to look at her. He ignored her plea, warned her not to appear in front of him again, and coldly told his secretary to chase her away. Witnessing all this, Du Ra couldn't help but feel sorry for Pil Sung. On her way home, she saw Pil Sung quietly drinking alone. She sat down next to him silently, hoping to share his pain. Seeing Du Ra, Pil Sung's wounded heart was comforted somewhat. Du Ra's love was the motivation for him to overcome all the injustice. However, Jin Dan witnessed their encounter. Jealousy surged, but because he was meeting with a business partner, he couldn't rush over to question Du Ra. When the meeting was over, he blocked Du Ra's way in front of her house and questioned her why she had lied to him about going home early to see her grandmother and refusing his date when she was clearly eating with Pil Sung. Knowing that she couldn't hide it anymore, Du Ra stood up for Pil Sung. The film was the heart and soul of the entire film crew. The director being fired midway was a huge loss for the entire team. Jin Dan was about to scold Du Ra, but the old lady appeared in time and, thinking he was a bad guy, chased him away. The next day, the crew members of the film crew gathered in front of the Gong family's company to protest, demanding that filming resume. Jin Dan hated being threatened by others and took his security guards to confront the protesting employees. The fierce conflict drew the attention of the media. Public opinion condemned the Gong family's company for bullying the weak. What surprised Chairman Gong even more was that he saw his wife in the crowd of protesters. Fearing that the situation would become bigger and affect the company's reputation, Chairman Gong pulled his wife away. They were still not divorced. If the media reported it widely, the company's stock price would definitely plummet. The usually gentle wife no longer held back, scolding him for taking his anger out on Pil Sung. She warned him that if he didn't handle this properly, she wouldn't stand for it. Threatened, Chairman Gong was irritated. To top it off, Pil Sung's adoptive parents came looking for him, furious, demanding justice for their son. He had absolutely no idea that Pil Sung's biological mother was actually his wife. Initially, Pil Sung agreed to cooperate with his biological mother to do a good job. Yet, Chairman Gong abused his power over a private matter, taking out his anger and causing Pil Sung to be affected. They said, "How can you use your power to trample on others like this?" To make matters worse, Du Ra got injured during the altercation and became the focus of the media's attention. Du Ra tried very hard to like him, but feelings can't be forced. No matter how hard she tried, it was useless. In her confusion, Du Ra unconsciously went to Pil Sung's house. Today, Pil Sung happened to see Du Ra on a date with Jin Dan, so he left sadly to drink. He started to panic, unsure of Du Ra's feelings for him, until he saw Du Ra silently come looking for him. He knew she still loved him, and he couldn't help but pull her close. Pil Sung knew that Du Ra hadn't recovered her memory yet and didn't remember her past grievances with Jin Dan. He could only remind her that even though they were once engaged, Jin Dan wasn't a good person. He had never hoped for Du Ra to recover her memory as much as he did now, even if those memories included him as the source of her pain. It was better than letting her continue to be entangled with Jin Dan. Du Ra returned home with her mind in turmoil. Her brother was waiting for her at the door. Du Ra wanted to ask her brother about her past, but he didn't know much about his sister's love life. His attitude was that even if Du Ra had loved Jin Dan before, it didn't mean she couldn't change. She didn't have to live according to the past. Her brother's words made Du Ra even more confused. Sometime later, Pil Sung's film was released and quickly became a blockbuster. The company was doing well. The shareholders recognized Pil Sung's abilities and proposed that he take over the entertainment company. Chairman Gong also thought Pil Sung was the most suitable person. Previously, he had a lot of prejudice against Pil Sung because of his wife. But after thinking carefully, Pil Sung was careful and capable, strong enough to shoulder the responsibility. Moreover, he and his wife were old and couldn't take care of their daughter for the rest of their lives. Pil Sung was her brother after all, and they could rely on each other in the future. The more he thought about it, the more suitable he felt Pil Sung was, so he agreed to hand over the position of entertainment company representative to him. This unexpected decision surprised Pil Sung. Jindan, on the other hand, was horrified. He couldn't accept that Pil Sung was above him. He ran to his mother to discuss countermeasures. At this moment, Jindan's mother was meeting her former lover. The man took out a picture of Jindan and asked who he actually was. The two of them were overheard by Jindan. He looked at his mother in disbelief. If he wasn't the Gong family's son, wouldn't that mean he would lose everything? His mom pulled him aside and quickly lied, saying his old lover was a relative from back home who was now selling insurance. She barely managed to hide it. After that meeting, she started to have doubts. She watched her son carefully and felt he didn't look like the people from the Gong family. She couldn't ignore those doubts, so she secretly took some of his hair for a DNA test. The results showed Jindan was actually her old lover's son. His mom was completely shocked and confused. She couldn't stop thinking about it and kept having nightmares every night. She dreamt that her husband's family was coming to strangle her, blaming her. She was terrified, so she decided to keep the secret. First, she had to deal with the old lover, who was like a ticking time bomb. She tricked him into going to the Philippines for a while, lying that she was fighting over some money. She said if anyone found out about their relationship, it would cause trouble. His old lover didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he packed his things and prepared to leave. But after thinking it over, he felt something was off. He guessed that Jindan might be his son, and that's why Jindan's mom was pushing him to leave. He was suspicious, so instead of going to the Philippines, he decided to meet with Jindan's mom and force her to tell the truth. Seeing she couldn't hide it anymore, she admitted everything. His old lover, who was older when he had his son, was so emotional he started crying. He wanted to meet his son. Jindan's mom refused, saying this was a crucial time for her son to inherit the Gong family's wealth. His true identity couldn't be revealed. The old lover understood her situation, but he couldn't hold back. He secretly went to see Jindan. Jindan had no idea what was going on. He was still dreaming about smoothly inheriting the company and eventually putting Pil Sung in his place. He couldn't stand the thought of Pil Sung becoming the representative of the entertainment company. Jindan knew he wasn't as talented as Pil Sung. He wasn't focused on work. His head was full of how Du Ra had rejected him for 2 days straight. He remembered how she slapped him about it and got even angrier. He felt like he'd wasted his money on her mother. She hadn't been helpful at all. So he called to ask where Du Ra was. Du Ra, with her amazing acting skills, had managed to turn a supporting role into a leading one, receiving tons of praise from fans and non-stop offers for new movies. A blockbuster drama series had specifically chosen her to be the lead. Du Ra felt this was all thanks to Pil Sung, so she went to ask him if he had helped. Pil Sung encouraged her, saying it was her exceptional acting that won everyone over. It had nothing to do with him. Hearing him say that, Du Ra felt encouraged and much more confident. Before leaving, she tried to control herself and congratulated Pil Sung on becoming the representative. It was clear she liked Pil Sung and knew he was good to her, but because of the money, she had to stay with Jindan. Sadness hit her. The pain of loving someone who didn't love her back was unbearable. Before she could calm down, she saw Jindan waiting for her. He felt their progress was too slow, so he invited her on a 3-day, 2-night trip to Jeju Island to try and develop their relationship. Seeing Jindan gave Du Ra a headache. She didn't want to do anything that went against her heart anymore. She asked to be paid half of her acting fee in advance to give to Jindan. This was against the company's rules, but Du Ra insisted, and Pil Sung, guessing she had a reason, agreed to pay her. The money was transferred to Du Ra's mother's account since she managed her finances. When her mother heard that Du Ra wanted to pay Jindan, she was unhappy and pretended to agree, but didn't actually do anything. Du Ra thought her mother had paid Jindan and wanted to clear things up with him. She refused to go to Jeju Island and didn't want to be controlled anymore. Jindan was confused. He hadn't received any money. Du Ra couldn't believe it, so she confronted her mother. Her mother gave all sorts of excuses and refused to pay. She even accused Du Ra of overreacting. She said just putting up with Jindan would earn her 5 billion won. Why wouldn't she do it? Du Ra was even more surprised to learn her mother thought she was reaching too high. Her mother only cared about money and couldn't see Du Ra's suffering while being with Jindan, enduring both physical and emotional torment. Her mother's actions broke Du Ra, and she cried uncontrollably. She began to doubt if she was actually her biological daughter because otherwise, her mother wouldn't treat her like an object, buying and selling her without caring about her feelings. The argument between mother and daughter was overheard by Du Ra's brother and sister. Her brother, who was already resentful towards their mother, became angry when he heard her selling his sister's love. He stormed out of the house. Her brother also felt their mother was going too far. Du-ra's mother, rejected by all three of her children, reluctantly paid Jindan 2 billion won. Relieved of the emotional burden, Du-ra felt at ease. She no longer tried to avoid Pil-sung. While practicing her acting, Du-ra accidentally fell and hit her head. Memories of her time with Pil-sung came flooding back. Pil-sung suggested they revisit places they used to go together to try and recover more memories. He had a fun day with Du-ra. The entire day, Jindan couldn't contact Du-ra, so he went early to wait for her in front of her house. He saw Pil-sung bring Du-ra home, the two of them laughing and talking happily, making Jindan's heart ache. He showed up as Du-ra's boyfriend, creating tension between the two men. Just as they were about to fight, Du-ra got a splitting headache. She remembered Pil-sung's hurtful words and was so heartbroken that she made the wrong choice. She didn't remember the reasons or the consequences. She was confused and panicked. Her mother helped her back home. Pil-sung's hurtful words kept echoing in Du-ra's head. She was heartbroken. She had already tried to kill herself because of him, and yet she was foolishly in love with him again. Du-ra swore she wouldn't let him hurt her again. She was determined to end things with Pil-sung. Du-ra couldn't recall her moments of love with Pil-sung, but some memories of her time with Jindan came back. She doubted if Jindan had ever truly loved her, and they had been quite good together. She wondered if everything was really as her mother had said, if her and Jindan were really in love. With those thoughts, she felt guilty and invited Jindan to her house for dinner. As they were saying goodbye, for once Du-ra didn't reject Jindan's hug. As he was about to take things further, his fiancée called to urge him to come to a dinner party. Jindan hurried off. Meanwhile, Chairman Gong, after careful thought, couldn't bear to leave his wife, so he declared he would forgive her and cancel the divorce. He even wanted to invite Pil-sung to dinner at his house. Everyone frowned at this. Chairman Gong had already guessed their reaction, but he didn't care. As long as his daughter was happy, he was willing to do anything. Furthermore, after going through so much, he had developed a fondness for Pil-sung. The four of them had dinner together. The atmosphere was harmonious like a real family. Chairman Gong even wanted to treat Pil-sung as his own son. Soon after, the new movie started filming. A scene where Du-ra was forced into a hotel reminded her of what Jindan had done to her. For a moment, she didn't understand what had happened before, realizing that the love she thought was mutual might have hidden secrets behind it. Jindan, watching Du-ra act, noticed she wasn't well and gently brought her a glass of water. Du-ra looked up, and the image of her mother tricking her into going to the villa flashed in her mind. Fear took over and she left the set, running into the woods. Memories came flooding back, like a tide, and she recalled everything that had happened in the past. Lost in the woods, she didn't know what to do. Hearing Pil-sung anxiously calling her name, Du-ra's heart ached like a knife cut. Years ago, it was her who betrayed their love for money. But now, Pil-sung wasn't holding a grudge. He still loved her. She didn't dare face him, hiding behind a large tree, refusing to come out. Du-ra collapsed from exhaustion and fainted. When Pil-sung ran over, in her semi-conscious state, she used the little bit of reason she had left to recognize the person in front of her and instinctively called out brother. This familiar term stunned Pil-sung. He guessed Du-ra had recovered her memories. Shortly after, Du-ra woke up in the hospital. Seeing her mother, all the bad memories came back and a surge of anger filled her. She looked at her mother with disgust and yelled for her to leave. Du-ra was overjoyed to see her grandmother, who had showered her with love. After recovering her memories, she couldn't live with her mother anymore and moved in with her grandmother. Her mother thought Du-ra wanted to enjoy life alone and refused to accept it, clinging to Du-ra. Du-ra ignored her mother and resolutely left, leaving her mother like a clown screaming in madness. Du-ra was worried her mother would cause trouble, so she didn't reveal her new address. Even for her housewarming party, she secretly invited only her brother and sister. Meanwhile, Du-ra's mother discovered that all of her daughter's income was no longer going into her account. She lost her daughter and the money. This made her furious, and she pressured her eldest son to take her to find Du-ra. Seeing her children living better than her, she shamelessly wanted to live with them. Du-ra firmly refused, so her mother changed tactics and demanded that Du-ra transfer all her income to her account. Du-ra ignored her mother's demands. Her mother caused a scene. Even her brother couldn't stand her anymore and had to drag her away. Her mother acted as if it was natural for her daughter to earn money for her to spend. She should at least buy her a big villa to live in. For years, she had lived a luxurious life by exploiting her daughter, without a hint of remorse in her heart. The next day, Jindan received the remaining 3 billion won that Du-ra had returned. Hearing this news, Du-ra's mother was immediately excited and curious about where her daughter got so much money. A plan formed in her mind to take it for herself. She went to bother Du-ra again, shamelessly demanding that Du-ra hand over all the money. Du-ra refused. She had tried to kill herself because she had trusted her mother and had been driven to a dead end. This time, she would never repeat the same mistake. Her grandmother, whom she met later, was completely different from her mother. She gave Du-ra all her savings, telling her to do what she wanted. Du-ra was incredibly grateful, and the first thing she did was pay Jindan back all the money. Du-ra made an appointment to meet him, wanting to clarify everything and end the relationship. Unexpectedly, Jindan's confession and pleas to stay were overheard by his fiancée. She was furious and wanted to break off the engagement with Jindan. Jindan immediately abandoned Du-ra and ran after his fiancée to beg for forgiveness. Du-ra witnessed this drama and couldn't help but laugh at Jindan's old tricks. The fiancé resolutely announced the cancellation of the engagement with the Gong family. Jindan dejectedly returned home, scolded by his brother and sister. His brother was very disappointed in him, and on top of that, Jindan had stubbornly invested in real estate against advice, suffering heavy losses. His brother felt he was incompetent and should give up on inheriting the Gong family wealth. Jindan's mother was so worried she paced back and forth, trying to find a way to salvage the situation, when she received even more shocking news. Chairman Gong was planning to adopt Pil-seung. Everyone in the Gong family was shocked. Jindan was even more upset. If Pil-seung became Chairman Gong's adopted son, the Gong family's assets would have nothing to do with him in the future. Pil-seung would definitely continue to lord over him. Thinking about this, Jindan became even more resentful. He drank to drown his sorrows, getting drunk and arguing with his brother. Jindan's mother was even more upset and didn't know where to unleash her anger. She thought of her old lover and blamed Pil-seung's sister for her son's inability to inherit the Gong family's assets. She was sure that his sister must have wanted Pil-seung to return, and Chairman Gong loved his daughter, so he agreed. The old lover, influenced by his ex, was momentarily possessed by evil spirits and wanted to harm his sister. He thought that the Gong family only had Jindan as their only son, and that when the time came, Chairman Gong would leave all his assets to him. The old lover followed his sister, looking for an opportunity. Pil-seung's sister was oblivious and ran to find Pil-seung. As she crossed the road, the old lover drove at high speed towards her. Pil-seung, without thinking, rushed out and pushed his sister aside, getting hit by the car. He fainted and was in critical condition. Pil-seung's accident worried everyone. Chairman Gong, hearing that Pil-seung was injured while saving his daughter, felt even more guilty and determined to adopt him. Pil-seung was seriously injured with internal injuries. Although the surgery was successful, it was still unknown whether he would survive the critical stage. Pil-seung's family and Chairman Gong's wife stayed up all night, waiting outside the intensive care unit, hoping for a miracle. Du-ra was also worried about Pil-seung's safety, but she couldn't reveal her identity, so she secretly hid in a corner of the hospital to get the latest news on Pil-seung's condition as soon as possible. The next day, the doctor confirmed that Pil-seung had passed the critical stage. Everyone was relieved and breathed a sigh of relief. Shortly after, Pil-seung regained consciousness. He remembered clearly that before he fainted, Du-ra was crying and calling him brother. She had admitted that she was Du-ra. However, at the time, Pil-seung's mind was hazy, and he was worried that this was just a hallucination he had been longing for day and night, so he didn't pay attention. After recovering, Pil-seung always found various reasons to approach Du-ra, acting spoiled, wanting her to do physiotherapy with him to take the opportunity to get close to her. Du-ra already loved Pil-seung, and being treated this way by him made her blush. Her initial intention was not to tell Pil-seung the truth was shaken. However, she knew that once the truth about her being Du-ra was revealed, it would have a high chance of being drowned by public opinion. After going through life and death, she didn't want to live in the storm. She planned to return to her fishing village with her grandmother after filming this movie and live a normal life. After Du-ra got her memories back, she was haunted by nightmares every night. She wondered who hurt her, making her a prisoner and leading her to a dead end. She suspected her mom, but they had a shared interest. If she got hurt, her mom's life wouldn't be safe either. So, she ruled out her mom. The only person left was Jindan. Thinking about it, she was furious. She wanted to confront Jindan, but she had no evidence and couldn't act impulsively. She tried to find the hotel records from 2 years ago, hoping to find the company owner she met in the hotel room back then. She met Pil-seung and found out the company owner was actually a fake, a random actor. Pil-seung had been investigating this guy, trying to clear Du-ra's name. Hearing this, Du-ra was touched again, and tears streamed down her face. She always thought Pil-seung didn't believe her, and now all the misunderstandings were cleared. She didn't hesitate anymore and finally admitted she got her memories back. She ran into Pil-seung's arms and cried uncontrollably. Back then, even if only Pil-seung believed her, she wouldn't have ended up like that. Pil-seung thought Du-ra wouldn't leave him anymore. He was overwhelmed with joy and wanted to make up for the past, becoming a peaceful haven for her. Today, Chairman Gong formally proposed to adopt Pil-seung. Pil-seung was stunned. Before he could respond, Jindan's mom heard about it and created a scene. Jindan was furious and couldn't just sit back. If his brother dared to adopt Pil-seung, he would call a board meeting to remove his brother from his position. Meanwhile, Pil Sung was still recovering from the good news of Du-ra regaining her memories, but Du-ra suddenly wanted to end their relationship. She had suffered so much injustice, and before clearing her name, she couldn't reveal her identity. Pil Sung's career was flourishing, and she didn't want to involve him. Du-ra was determined, and Pil Sung couldn't change her mind. Later, Du-ra secretly investigated and found out information about the actor. Pil Sung also heard that Du-ra was looking for the actor, and worried that she would be exposed if she kept searching. He urged Du-ra to leave everything to him and not act recklessly. Pil Sung always thought about her, and Du-ra's cold heart finally melted. She decided not to reject him anymore. They would face any challenges together. Pil Sung couldn't stop staring at his girlfriend. Unexpectedly, Jin Dan witnessed their affectionate scene. Filled with resentment, Jin Dan announced his and Du-ra's marriage to the media without her permission. His actions reminded Du-ra of everything she had endured. Jin Dan was like a nightmare, clinging to her, unwilling to let her go. Exhausted and helpless, Du-ra cried in Pil Sung's arms. Faced with Jin Dan's arrogance, Pil Sung knew he needed more power to protect Du-ra. He remembered Chairman Gong's offer to adopt him. Now the situation had changed. His adoptive parents supported him, and he needed strength to fight Jin Dan. Becoming Chairman Gong's adopted son was the best option. He agreed to the adoption, but his condition was that Chairman Gong had to help remove the news of Du-ra and Jin Dan's marriage. Jin Dan was still enjoying his absolute power when he suddenly realized his brother was interfering. He was furious and guessed it was Pil Sung's doing. He went to find Pil Sung for a confrontation and punched him in the face. Du-ra was standing nearby and rushed to help, but Jin Dan, in a fit of rage, pushed her down. In that moment of danger, Pil Sung called out Du-ra's name. Jin Dan couldn't believe it, but he didn't care. He simply didn't believe that Du-ra had come back to life. Before he could process what was happening, Jin Dan noticed that Du-ra called Pil Sung brother, but she had never addressed him so affectionately. After that incident, Pil Sung proposed to Du-ra. He felt that only by being together could he protect the woman he loved. Du-ra's mother still didn't know about her daughter. She targeted the grandma, envious of her help in paying off Du-ra's debts. Taking advantage of grandma's dementia, she claimed to be her daughter, seizing the opportunity to move in with her and Du-ra. However, she wasn't satisfied. Soon, her gambling addiction resurfaced. Believing that with enough capital, she could make a fortune and turn the tables, she stole Grandma's savings while she was asleep and lost it all gambling. Grandma searched everywhere for the gold but couldn't find it. Suddenly, she remembered Du-ra's mother seeing the gold. Her eyes lit up with suspicion. She suspected Du-ra's mother had stolen it. But Grandma occasionally forgot things, allowing Du-ra's mother to cover up her actions. No one suspected her. Despite this, Du-ra's mother didn't learn her lesson and continued to find ways to gamble. This time, she targeted Pil Sung's younger sister. Pil Sung's sister was in love with Du-ra's mother's youngest son. She lied about needing investment and tricked Pil Sung's sister out of 2 billion won. Chairman Gong discovered his daughter's large expenditure and ordered someone to investigate. He had already disapproved of his daughter's relationship with Du-ra's brother, and now, finding out that Du-ra's mother had scammed her own daughter, he was furious and ordered his daughter to break up with Du-ra's brother. Du-ra's brother knew his mother's nature and didn't bother to explain. He was worried that his sister staying with him would be hurt by his mother, so he chose to bear all the misunderstandings. The 3 siblings confronted their mother, demanding she return the 2 billion won to Pil Sung's sister. Unable to deny it any longer, she admitted to losing the money gambling the day before. At that moment, the police arrived and revealed that Grandma's gold had been sold by Du-ra's mother. All her dirty deeds were exposed. Du-ra's mother knelt down in fear, pretending to be pitiful to beg for forgiveness. However, the hurt she had caused her 3 children had surpassed their limits. Du-ra and her siblings were no longer soft-hearted towards their mother and sent her back to her old rented house, refusing to have anything to do with her. After severing ties with her mother, Du-ra and Pil Sung faced new challenges. Pil Sung was about to become Chairman Gong's adopted son and be part of the same family as Jin Dan. Chairman Gong wanted to resolve the conflict between them. Jin Dan made a condition. He agreed to accept Pil Sung into the family, but Pil Sung had to end his relationship with Du-ra. Pil Sung firmly refused and even confessed his desire to marry Du-ra. Chairman Gong always liked Pil Sung, but considering the stability and harmony of the family, he didn't agree with Pil Sung marrying Du-ra. Furthermore, Pil Sung's family still disliked Du-ra. They felt that Pil Sung shouldn't give up his chance to become the heir to the company for Du-ra. Nevertheless, Pil Sung was determined to marry Du-ra. He knew Du-ra was a ticking time bomb. Once her true identity was exposed, it would undoubtedly affect Chairman Gong's business as his adopted son. To be responsible to Chairman Gong, Pil Sung revealed Du-ra's true identity. After hearing this, Chairman Gong couldn't ignore the risk and put the adoption plan on hold for now. Pil Sung felt there was nothing to regret as long as he could marry Du-ra. Soon after overcoming countless challenges, Pilsung finally got his wish and married Du-ra. Just as they were about to complete the wedding ceremony, a group of reporters stormed in, asking Du-ra why she changed her name and returned to the entertainment industry. The secret she wanted to keep hidden was exposed. Du-ra was terrified. Du-ra's mother, who had come to the wedding uninvited, also didn't expect her daughter's identity to be revealed. Du-ra's brother felt it must be related to their mother. Their mother then realized that when she was drunk, she had accidentally revealed things she shouldn't have to Jindan. Du-ra's story threw Pilsung's family into chaos, but his father, who had known the truth for a long time, stood by his side. Worried that Du-ra would be overwhelmed by the onslaught of news, Pilsung took her to a secluded place at night, far from any human presence. Seeing the increasingly absurd news, which was even implicating Pilsung, Du-ra decided to face the media alone. She held a press conference to explain everything clearly. The reporters didn't believe her words, and they went even further, accusing Pilsung of being Du-ra's accomplice, saying they both were trying to deceive the public to continue making money in the entertainment industry. It was as if Du-ra couldn't wash herself clean even if she jumped into a river. At this point, a reporter threw an egg at Du-ra, but Pilsung rushed over in time to shield her. Pilsung loved Du-ra wholeheartedly, but this love didn't bring her relief. Instead, it was filled with guilt. She didn't want to implicate Pilsung, jeopardizing his bright future. Seeing Du-ra crumble, Pilsung felt heartbroken. Last time, he let Du-ra face all the criticism alone, but this time, he would stay by her side, never leaving her. Meanwhile, Pilsung's mother couldn't stand seeing her son being attacked and blamed Du-ra for everything. When she couldn't convince Pilsung, she angrily went to find Du-ra. She slapped her across the face, accusing her of being shameless, leading Pilsung to do wrong and ruining his future. Du-ra didn't dare to argue back. She knew Pilsung had sacrificed for her. To avoid implicating her lover, she decided to leave silently. Du-ra disappeared again. Pilsung was haunted by the bad memories of the past and feared his lover would think about doing something reckless. He searched everywhere for her. Thankfully, he found her on the beach. Du-ra still wanted to run away, but Pilsung didn't give her a chance, embracing her tightly. Even if the sky fell, he wouldn't let go of Du-ra anymore. The couple embraced and cried together, having gone through hardship together. Although Du-ra felt guilty towards Pilsung, she found comfort in knowing she wasn't facing all the malice in the world alone this time. Du-ra's mother had hurt Du-ra many times, causing Pilsung to feel utterly disappointed. He solemnly called his family together and revealed that Du-ra had attempted suicide because of him. If he had believed and supported Du-ra back then, she wouldn't have felt so hopeless. He had been in immense pain after learning of her death. Now that she had returned, going through a similar ordeal, he would absolutely never let go of her again. After hearing Pilsung and Du-ra's story, Pilsung's mother began to sympathize with her son, and his sister also decided to stand by him. His mother always felt like this situation was orchestrated by someone. She didn't want Chairman Gong to adopt Pilsung, but hoped that he could help clear Pilsung's name. Chairman Gong was still unsure whether to help, but things became even more serious. Not only Pilsung and Du-ra were being attacked, but Pilsung's family was also being criticized. Pilsung was fine, but he didn't want his family to be implicated. If he kept enduring and couldn't change the situation, Pilsung decided to take the initiative and launch a counterattack. He would hold a press conference, revealing everything Du-ra had endured and revealing the fact that the actor took money to act in a play about Du-ra being kept. The face of the actor appeared on the big screen, and Jindan, the mastermind behind it all, was filled with anxiety. He was the architect of all the schemes and was afraid of being exposed. He wanted to contact the actor, asking him to leave immediately. However, the actor who had blackmailed him just 2 days ago had disappeared without a trace. Helpless, Jindan had to go threaten the actor's sick mother. The actor's mother didn't know Jindan's identity. She only felt that he was not someone to be trifled with and feared her son would end up dead. After careful consideration, she remembered that Pilsung had come to see her and sincerely wanted to help her son. She arranged for Pilsung to meet the actor. Sadly, the actor didn't want to clear up the misunderstanding. Back then, he hadn't thought much of it, only wanting to make some money, but he didn't expect it to lead to murder. Seeing Du-ra kneeling in front of him, he felt remorseful and agreed to turn himself in. The actor soon held a press conference, clarifying the misunderstanding and clearing Du-ra's name. She thought it was over, that she had finally cleared her name, but unexpectedly, people didn't forgive her and still saw her as a mistress. Du-ra felt devastated by the situation. Meanwhile, after orchestrating the car accident, the former lover continued to demand money from Jindan's mother. Under her relentless questioning, he revealed that Chairman Gong was investigating the cause of his daughter's car accident. He was obsessed with power and wanted to pave the way for his son to inherit the Gong family's assets. He had planned the car accident to prevent Chairman Gong from discovering the truth. He wanted to get money to help the person he hired to flee the country. Jin Dan, completely unaware of the situation, found out his mother had a former lover. He thought the former lover was trying to deceive his mother and wanted to confront him. His mother quickly stopped him, telling him he absolutely couldn't touch the former lover. Jin Dan didn't understand. Fearing that he wouldn't accept the truth that the former lover was his biological father, his mother lied that he was the man she planned to marry. Jin Dan mocked the former lover's poor appearance, worried that his mother was being deceived. Later, his mother borrowed money from him. Jin Dan was concerned about his mother and followed her. He saw her giving the money to the former lover and angrily rushed to confront him. In a moment of crisis, his mother revealed the truth. The former lover was Jin Dan's biological father. Jin Dan was astonished. At the same time, Chairman Gong caught the perpetrator and learned that the mastermind behind the car accident was the former lover. But he had never heard the former lover's name before. Moreover, his daughter was kind and rarely interacted with outsiders. It was almost impossible for her to have an enemy. Thinking about it, Chairman Gong felt a chill down his spine, worried that some force was targeting the Gong family. Just when he was pondering what to do, Jin Dan learned of his true identity. He couldn't believe it. This man who looked like a beggar was his father. He instinctively wanted to run away and stumbled away from the scene. Calming down, he made an appointment to meet the former lover. No matter what the truth was, he couldn't accept him as his biological father and demanded that he leave Korea immediately. The former lover, finally knowing he had a son at his age, couldn't bring himself to leave. Jin Dan was angry. They had no father-son bond, and he ruthlessly told his biological father to get as far away as possible. His mother softened and felt sorry for the former lover. She revealed that he had hired someone to frame Pil-sung's sister in order to help Jin Dan inherit the family fortune. Hearing this, Jin Dan felt like the world was collapsing around him. He had never wanted to harm Pil-sung's sister, but everything was his fault. He knew Chairman Gong's methods well. Once he discovered a clue, the former lover would be exposed and his true identity would be revealed. Jin Dan was heartbroken. Before Jin Dan could figure out how to deal with his shocking family secret, Chairman Gong heard from Pil-sung's grandmother that Jin Dan wasn't his biological brother. Coincidentally, the former lover had been renting a room from Pil-sung's grandmother. Being rejected by his son, he was devastated and regretted revealing the secret. Unexpectedly, his words were overheard by Pil-sung's grandmother. Knowing that Jin Dan's biological father was someone else, she was astonished. She wasn't sure if it was true or not, but thinking about how Chairman Gong almost adopted Pil-sung, she carefully considered it and decided to tell Chairman Gong this shocking news. Hearing that his brother wasn't his father's son, Chairman Gong was surprised. To be certain, he secretly investigated and confirmed what Pil-sung's grandmother had said was true. He arranged to meet with Jin Dan and his mother to talk, directly revealing their true identities. Chairman Gong was furious. He had known for years that his brother was embezzling funds, but he didn't pursue it because of their brotherhood. Now, Jin Dan was still trying to hide his crimes without any remorse. Seeing that Chairman Gong had enough evidence to put him in jail, Jin Dan was truly worried. He pushed Chairman Gong to the ground and hurriedly ran away. When Jin Dan's mother rushed over, she only saw Chairman Gong lying on the ground. She didn't know her secret had been exposed and immediately called an ambulance. Luckily, Chairman Gong had only fainted and was physically fine. During this time, Jin Dan wanted to transfer his assets, but he discovered that his brother had frozen his account. He could only take all the cash from his safe and wanted to run away with his mother. However, the boatman he contacted turned out to be a scammer. His mother was unprepared and lost all her money in an instant. Jin Dan was desperate and could only bring his mother back to the Gong family's house, hoping Chairman Gong hadn't woken up yet. His mother was terrified and didn't want to go back. Jin Dan promised that as long as they could escape to another country and get the money from the shell company, he would return to pick her up. Hearing this, she trembled and returned to the Gong family's house. She didn't know that Chairman Gong had already woken up and been discharged from the hospital, and his mother was still kicked out of the house. After dealing with Jin Dan's situation, Chairman Gong completed the legal adoption process for Pil-sung. Chairman Gong's family happily informed Pil-sung's family. The two families had a good relationship and now they were even closer. Pil-sung was also reinstated and returned to his position as a director. Do-ra genuinely rejoiced for him. Meanwhile, Do-ra still hoped to return to the entertainment industry, but even though the mistress scandal was over, people still believed she had a stain and wasn't qualified to return to the screen. She was deeply affected by the situation. Seeing her sadness, Pil-sung did everything he could to cheer her up and dispel the gloom in her heart. Do-ra knew it would be difficult to return as an actress, so for a living, she decided to open a noodle shop with her grandmother and live a normal life. But Do-ra was famous. Fans who once saw her as a goddess, who they thought was above everyone else, couldn't accept her change and came to humiliate her at the noodle shop. It was already difficult to transition from a big star to an ordinary person, and even after Do-ra adapted to this life, people were still bothering her. She felt dejected and scolded them for being immoral and having no limits. After venting her anger, Pilsung encouraged her. You gain true love after hardship, and their love for each other became deeper. They embraced tightly. This scene was witnessed by Jindan, who was hiding. Du-Ra's happiness was painful to him. He lost his mind and blamed Du-Ra for all his failures. He was at a dead end. He originally planned to rely on the shell company abroad to make a living, but he learned that the company had been sealed. Now, he was truly penniless. Feeling like his life was meaningless, he desperately went towards the river. Luckily, a phone call from his mother awakened a bit of Jindan's sanity. He wanted to say goodbye to the world and have one last meal with his mother. It turned out that the mother and son had been spending money lavishly, never paying attention to prices when eating. Now, they were down on their luck, sharing a plate of raw fish. Seeing this scene, Jindan couldn't help but feel bitter. After saying goodbye to his mother, Du-Ra was still a thorn in his side. He didn't understand why Du-Ra didn't like him. Before he died, he wanted to see Du-Ra one last time. He wanted to say goodbye to her peacefully, but she gave him no quarter. The more she refused, the more he wanted to hug her. During the struggle, Du-Ra accidentally bumped her head and fainted. Jindan, in a reckless act, kidnapped her. Driven by his twisted love and hatred, Jindan couldn't have Du-Ra, so he wanted to die with her. Du-Ra woke up in fear and tried to break free and get out of the car. To stop her, Jindan accidentally crashed into an oncoming car. The car flipped over and Jindan managed to crawl out, but Du-Ra was thrown out. His first reaction was to run away, completely unconcerned about Du-Ra's life or death. She remained unconscious all night and was only discovered by a passerby in the early morning who took her to the hospital. Pilsung rushed over and heard from the doctor that Du-Ra was seriously injured. Although her life wasn't in danger, she might never be able to walk again. The police investigated the case, and Du-Ra's brother learned about the kidnapping process. He was furious and wanted to kill Jindan in revenge, but Pilsung, still rational, did his best to stop him. After Du-Ra's condition stabilized, she learned she was paralyzed from the waist down and was devastated. She didn't understand why fate was treating her this way. Before, even if she couldn't continue her acting dream, she could retire from the entertainment industry and live a normal life by Pilsung's side until they were old. But now she was disabled, and she didn't want to burden the rest of his life. She started resisting Pilsung's visits and care. Seeing Du-Ra's cold attitude, Pilsung was heartbroken and felt helpless and miserable. After Du-Ra's accident, the media reported her story extensively. Jindan's actions sparked public outrage, and people went to Chairman Gong's company, demanding that he pay for Du-Ra's treatment. Seeing this news, Du-Ra remembered that her current tragedy was caused by Jindan and wished she could kill him. How could Pilsung not understand her feelings? This was also what he wanted to do. Du-Ra calmed down and saw Pilsung rush out, guessing he was going to find Jindan to settle this. Her brother saw this and stopped him. In fact, a revenge plan had already formed in Pilsung's mind. He wanted Chairman Gong to pretend to give Jindan's mother a bag of money to help them escape Korea. His mother believed it and made an appointment to meet her son. Based on this, Pilsung found Jindan. Jindan knew he was tricked and tried to escape with his mother. But his mother was wearing high heels and couldn't run fast. She was actually a burden. Jindan's actions were reported by the media and everyone knew about it. People on the street saw him and wanted to punch him twice to vent their anger for Du-Ra. With everyone's help, he had nowhere to run. Pilsung couldn't contain his anger and rushed over to punch him to the ground. Jindan didn't repent and even accused Pilsung in front of everyone, saying that the injuries on his body were caused by Pilsung and demanded the police arrest him. Jindan deserved to be beaten, and the police ignored his accusations and took him to the station. Soon, Jindan and his father were sentenced to jail for attempted murder. Chairman Gong publicly clarified that he had no blood relationship with Jindan. Jindan's actions only represented himself and would not affect the company, but out of humanitarian concern, he was willing to pay for Du-Ra's rehabilitation treatment himself. Watching the news, everyone felt sympathy for Du-Ra's misfortune. Her fans in prison took out their anger on her behalf. Jindan was beaten every day to alleviate their anger. Du-Ra finally got justice, and people no longer cursed her, but the inability to walk was a constant source of pain. She didn't want Pilsung to see her frail side and wanted to escape him. Pilsung understood her too well and stayed by her side every moment, leaving her no place to hide. She was tortured by both physical and mental pain. Pilsung's two mothers were also tormented. They knew it was cruel to separate Pilsung from Du-Ra at this time, but thinking about how Du-Ra might never be able to walk again and how it would affect Pilsung, they were still heartless and wanted to advise Du-Ra to break up with him. As soon as the two elders appeared before Du-Ra, she understood their intention. How could she not want to leave Pilsung? It's just that she had tried many times, but it hadn't worked. Seeing her like this, the two mothers had prepared their words, but they couldn't bring themselves to say them. At this moment, Du-Ra's mother came to the hospital. With a sliver of hope for her mother, Du-Ra painfully begged her to take her away. Du-Ra's mother looked at her daughter heartbroken and decided to blackmail Pil-Sung's mother, taking Du-Ra far away and disappearing from Pil-Sung's life. Soon after Du-Ra left, Pil-Sung searched for his beloved everywhere, worried and restless. Du-Ra's brother and sister saw the breakup note she left behind and quickly told Pil-Sung. The three of them searched everywhere, but there was no news of Du-Ra, and gradually, a bad feeling arose in their hearts. They were worried that Du-Ra's mother would use her medical expenses to gamble. Sure enough, when Du-Ra's brother found her mother, she was gambling happily, completely forgetting about taking care of her daughter. She checked the date on her phone and realized she had ignored Du-Ra for 5 days. When Pil-Sung arrived, Du-Ra looked at him with a tired face. Her frail appearance broke his heart. He took Du-Ra away, determined to keep her by his side and encourage her to get up. Their loving image was made into a press release and posted online. People were touched by their unwavering love. Pil-Sung was overjoyed that netizens could encourage Du-Ra and patiently encouraged her to actively engage in physical therapy. Du-Ra was exhausted, both physically and mentally. Just when she was about to give up, she suddenly found that she could stand up on her own. Pil-Sung was overjoyed to the point of tears, and Du-Ra was equally happy. However, what Pil-Sung didn't expect was that the first thing Du-Ra wanted to do was break up with him, because he had promised her that if she could stand up, he would willingly leave. Pil-Sung didn't understand. They had clearly overcome every obstacle, even fate had spared them. Du-Ra was gradually recovering and could walk, but she repeatedly rejected him. In fact, Du-Ra's heart was also full of pain. She always remembered what Pil-Sung's two mothers had said, hoping she would leave him and not be a burden to him. She always felt like she owed Pil-Sung too much and was unworthy of being by his side. After all, a love that wasn't blessed would ultimately have no happy ending. Realizing that the biggest obstacle in the young couple's love was his mother, Chairman Gong was touched by their sincere love. He couldn't help but scold his wife for being selfish, always making decisions for Pil-Sung under the guise of what's best for him. She didn't realize that every time she thought she was right, she was stabbing Pil-Sung in the heart. His mother also knew she was wrong. Though she loved her son, Du-Ra was a pitiful person too. She had just gone through the pain of a broken leg and was at the darkest point of her life. Yet the two mothers asked her to give up her lover. Realizing their mistake, Pil-Sung's two mothers sincerely apologized to Du-Ra and sincerely wished for the couple to grow old together. The final hurdle was overcome, and Du-Ra was no longer worried. Pil-Sung, unaware of his girlfriend's thoughts, was still thinking of ways to coax her not to break up with him. He foolishly lied that he was going to meet with 100 women for blind dates. Du-Ra pretended not to care and let him go. In the next second, she hugged Pil-Sung tightly. Pil-Sung was surprised by her unusual attitude. At this point, Du-Ra revealed that her mother and mother-in-law had agreed for them to be together. Pil-Sung was overjoyed and solemnly thanked his mother and mother-in-law. The whole family reunited, their faces filled with happy smiles. At the same time, Du-Ra's brother's architectural work won a major award, and her sister planned to go abroad with her boyfriend. Although Chairman Gong couldn't bear to be apart from his daughter, he felt that she was grown up and would eventually have to learn to let go. After a long period of interaction, he was very happy with his daughter's boyfriend and held a grand engagement ceremony for them. Du-Ra's mother, who was penniless, heard this news and targeted her brother again. She claimed to be his mother and went to Chairman Gong, claiming that Pil-Sung's sister was mentally disabled and demanding compensation. Du-Ra's mother's brazen face enraged Chairman Gong. He knew her character well and didn't want to deal with her. He went to Du-Ra's brother. Du-Ra's brother learned that his mother was scamming his brother again and angrily dragged her away to die with her. They had severed ties with their mother, but she was still a haunting presence. He felt that only by dying with his mother could his brother and sister be happy. Realizing her son's murderous intent, Du-Ra's mother was scared and ran away in panic, vowing never to appear again. She might as well disappear from this world. From then on, Du-Ra finally escaped from her nightmare. Good news continued to come. Du-Ra won the Best Actress award for the TV drama directed by Pil-Sung and returned to the stage. Everyone urged the two to get married quickly, but the couple said they wanted to strike while the iron was hot and develop their careers. They would make another TV drama using Du-Ra's award-winning momentum. They continued to date and work together, living happily ever after under everyone's blessings. As for Jindan, who had caused so much hurt to Du-Ra, he didn't acknowledge his father in prison and he carried his hatred, sinking into endless torment. This is the end of the drama. Thank you for watching.